subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Braised pork, a dish I have never seen or heard of before, to be chosen by one of the world's top gourmets, Bahala. An unknown dish must be very challenging. It is interesting to see how many people can satisfy his unusual taste. But Sats's eyes were focused on Molek, who had come to the stove. Even if you know how to make this unknown dish, it may not be that easy to cook. Therefore, the focus is still on Molek, the only person who knows how to make this dish besides the examiner. Sats was curious about what kind of dish this braised pork belly was. Many candidates in the factory also took the best piece of pork belly from a pig. Then, they all looked at Molek and waited for his next cooking action. Even if he had already told them how to cook it, what if there were mistakes in the steps he said? Therefore, they still had to observe his every move carefully to ensure that there would be no problems in their cooking. So, in addition to testing the ability to fight against the porcupines, this level actually tests observation, right? Some candidates who were good at analysis, such as Karapika, further understood the purpose of this test. Under the gaze of many candidates, Molek put a piece of good pork belly on the chopping board. He picked up the knife next to it, looked at it, shook his head, and then put it back. What does this mean? His behavior surprised everyone. Don't you need a knife to cut this kind of food? Should such a large piece of pork belly be cooked directly? But the pot can't be put down either. Just when the candidates were puzzled, they saw Molek flip his palm. In an instant, a kitchen knife that was completely black and shone with a black and bright light like a star appeared in Molek's hand. That kitchen knife! Min Ki, who was sitting on the sofa and preparing to watch Molek cook, stood up at this moment. Her eyes were fixed on the kitchen knife in Molek's hand. As one of the best gourmets and cooks in the world, her knowledge and understanding of kitchen utensils is far beyond that of ordinary people. Therefore, when Molek took out this strange kitchen knife, she had already noticed the extraordinariness of this kitchen utensil. What kind of knife is that? Min Ki only felt that the knife held in Molek's hand was so attractive to her. She had an eager and urgent desire to possess it from the bottom of her heart. This was definitely not an ordinary kitchen utensil. Even the kitchen utensil made by the psychic ability user was far from attracting her like this. And the knife that Molek took out was also something that was open from the red blind box that was born in this green factory just now. Got a high-level blind box. Do you want to open it? Open successfully. Get Garuda knife. Source World. Chinese cooking master boy. Garuda knife, one of the legendary kitchen utensils in Chinese cooking master boy. Thanks to 15652 for another 2,000 points reward. 16,000 points reward. You are awesome. And Jiang Zuyufeng, wow. This time he gave 5,000 points directly. And then there are 2,000 points. 7,000 points reward. I am so excited that I am shaking all over. I am so grateful to you. You are really two super giants. Thank you very much. I will definitely add more chapters, but I've been busy these 2 days and I have consumed too much energy to code. I will definitely make up for it later. Please rest assured, I will definitely do it. Factory. Post views. 512 starred opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 104. Menki was shocked. Molek's cooking skills were impeccable. He passed the test without any doubt. 104 men, Ki was shocked. Molek's cooking skills were impeccable. He passed the test without any doubt. It is a pair with the Eternal Spirit Blade and is a kitchen utensil with incredible mysterious power. Legend has it that the ancient famous chef Shioli used meteorites from the sky to make 8 magical kitchen utensils. Because the power of the kitchen utensils was too strong, these 8 kitchen utensils were sealed in 8 places in mainland China. If a chef can master the use of all 8 kitchen utensils at the same time, the dishes cooked by using all 8 kitchen utensils together can make the eater immortal. The kitchen utensils also have their own magical powers and can be used separately. The Garuda knife is a kitchen knife specially used for handling birds and beasts. It has the ability to completely purify the ingredients between cuts. Therefore, When Molek held the Garuda knife and cut the pork belly of the Hinoki pig, it seemed that there was no hindrance at all, and the blade penetrated the meat very smoothly. In just a moment, the huge piece of pork belly was cut into long strips of meat, and when the meat was cut, everyone could see clearly. The color of those pieces of meat became brighter and redder. It was as if it was still full of vitality. Compared with the slightly dull pieces of meat in their hands, it was like two levels of meat. This is the Garuda knife, which purifies all ingredients, whether it is a piece of meat that has long been rotten or a piece of meat that is full of toxins like a pufferfish. Under the cutting of this knife, everything will be purified to the freshest and most perfect state. That is definitely not an ordinary knife. Menki's eyes suddenly brightened. She saw all the effects of the Garuda sword. If I could use this knife to handle those special ingredients, considering that there are some ingredients in this world that require extremely special methods to cook successfully, the existence of such a knife will definitely make the cooking work much easier. 623. This is a precious sword that can make a chef fall in love with it. At least, Menki looked at the knife in Molek's hand, and the passion and envy in his eyes could not be concealed at all. Bahala, on the other hand, thought something relatively simple. If you use this knife to cook the ingredients, the pork belly that Molek makes will definitely taste pretty good, right? His eyes and mouth also revealed great desire and expectation. Well, the two food hunters reacted differently. The other candidates focused on the cooking method. In their eyes, they saw Molek cut the huge pork belly into 8 pieces without any bias. Then he tied it up with the cattails he picked outside. It bubbled twice bloody clear soup. Karapika and Hanzo, who were good at hands-on learning, followed and recorded while Morak was working. Add broth to the pot, then star anise and aniseed no salt, then boil it, right? Everyone started to work at the same time. Some candidates were in a hurry and didn't know the difference between star anise and other seasonings. They just put them into the pot. Compared with Molek's smooth movements, it was a world of difference. In addition to the knife, is this man's cooking skill also so high? Menki, who was still immersed in the attraction of the Garuda knife, suddenly came back to her senses. She noticed that when Molek opened the market to process the meat of the hognose boar, both the knife skills and the ingredients were impeccable. The cooking skills of the man were much better than most chefs she had seen. Even some one-star gourmet hunters could not compare with him. Is it because of his amazing cooking skills that he can own this knife? Menki admitted that what attracted her at this moment was not only the magical knife. There was also the man who could cook, Molek himself. There's a saying that men who can cook are very handsome. Especially the dishes they make are particularly attractive. Menki herself felt a little excited and wanted to try Molek's dishes. She was shocked by Molek's cooking skills. The super chef cooking skills also came from the cooking master boy, but it was a perfect match with the Garuda knife. That's why it was so perfect. After cooking for a while, when he realized that the time was almost right, Molek immediately opened the pot, picked out the long pieces of meat, and put them in the jar next to it. In the jar was the soy sauce that had been seasoned long ago. Cover the lid, boil over high heat, and simmer. This is the last step of this dish. While the meat was stewing, wisps of mellow fragrance began to slowly drift out of the factory. What a nice smell. Almost at the same time, the candidates sniffed their noses and swallowed their saliva. They first ran dozens of kilometers in the underground tunnel, a marathon for several hours. Then they were always on guard in the dangerous environment of the Shy Mile wetland. Then they went to hunt the most ferocious boar in the world and almost became pig feed. After such a high-intensity test, they felt a little tired and hungry. They just stared at the jar for who knows how long. All right, Molek, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes and opened the jar. Suddenly, a richer and more mellow meaty aroma spread throughout the factory. Gurgle! Buhara's stomach growled even louder, and the saliva at the corners of his mouth flowed crazily. What a nice smell. Even Menki twitched her nose, unable to resist the saliva in her mouth, and licked the corner of her mouth with her pink tongue. She suddenly wanted to taste the taste of this braised pork made by Molek. It really smells really good. Even Sats, who was squatting on the treetop outside the factory, couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. He had never smelled such a fragrance before. The other candidates were also swallowing their saliva frantically, watching Molek pick out the big pieces of meat. The meat pieces were bright red and fresh, with fat and lean, and they were really mouth-watering. It looks delicious. Liurio wiped his saliva and stared at. So I would say that Molek's cooking skills are also very good. Xiao Jie subconsciously wanted to put his index finger into his mouth. With his keen sense of smell, he could smell the rich aroma of the meat. It was as if his nose was constantly kissed, making his throat roll subconsciously. Under the gazes of many examinees, Molek put the 8 pieces of meat on a plate and brought it to Bahara. "Please taste," he smiled and made a pleased gesture. "I'm eating." Bahara, who had been unable to hold back for a long time, shouted with joy, and then he didn't use chopsticks at all. He grabbed a piece of meat with his fat big hand and stuffed it into his mouth. Well, it was just taken out of the boiling pot. The meat was still steaming hot, and it looked very hot. But Bahara just picked it up and threw it into his mouth without caring. He was really ruthless. Baji, there was no sound in the entire factory. Apart from the gurgling sound of the lid of the jar where the pork was being cooked, there was only the sound of Bahara chewing the meat. Gulu with the rolling of his throat, Bahara swallowed the whole piece of meat. Then delicious! The extremely satisfied, joyful voice from the heart came out from Bahara's throat. "It's so delicious. It's really delicious." Everyone can see Bahara's excitement. It's so fragrant, fat, but not greasy, lean, but not dry. The taste of this meat is even better and more tender than tofu, Bahara kept praising. And then, without hesitation, he took another piece of meat and stuffed it into his mouth. The taste is so mellow, and the meat flavor is quite strong, which fully develops the deliciousness and fragrance of the hog. He smacked his lips and felt that one piece was not enough. So he took 2 or 3 pieces in succession and stuffed them in his mouth. It's really a long aftertaste, leaving a lingering fragrance on your lips and teeth. Bahala ate so much that his mouth was drooling, and he was so satisfied. Any candidate who saw this knew that Molek had definitely passed. Moreover, the taste of the dish he made was so good that other candidates could not find any fault with it. "I want to eat it too." Xiaojie was a little jealous. There was also Minky next to Bahala. She really wanted to taste this flavor. She was so jealous that she wanted to try Molek's cooking skills and this flawless and perfect dish, even if it was just one bite. But unfortunately, Bahala didn't give Minky this opportunity. Or rather, he never thought of sharing this delicacy that he loved so much with others. Soon, Bahala devoured all the braised pork served by Molek like a whirlwind. "It's really delicious." As Menki stretched his neck, Bahala continued to smack his lips, immersed in the delicious taste. "You are undoubtedly qualified, Molek." Bahala immediately announced Molek's qualification. "Thank you." Molek thanked him, and there was no surprise at all. Whether it was his cooking skills or his skill in catching the porcupine, he was undoubtedly qualified. After the first qualified person appeared, the candidates all reacted with a stern look. The most important thing at the moment was to pass. Then one by one, they began to stare at the jar in front of them, calculating the time to cook. But at the same time, some candidates began to murmur in their hearts. The food that man cooked tasted really good. What if the examiner eats the food he cooks, raises his expectations and demands, and our cooking is not very good? Many candidates have such concerns in their hearts, and a sense of urgency arises in their hearts. The whole factory is filled with the aroma of large pieces of meat. "Yoshi, it's done." Following Molek's steps, Liarina followed closely behind. After Molek, he was the first to finish cooking the meat. But when he opened the jar and took out the pieces of meat, the black and red pieces of meat made the curious people around lose their appetite at first sight. It's obvious that there's too much soy sauce. Minky glanced at it and then looked away. Compared with the dish that Molek had brought just now, it was far inferior. The two were not on the same level at all. But when this dish was brought to Bahura, tasty, he swallowed the whole piece of meat in one gulp and gave his comment. Yaxia! Leorio shouted excitedly and waved his fist. Seeing the second qualified candidate besides Molek, some candidates felt more urgent. Some even stopped using the small fire and turned to the big fire directly to finish faster. Mine is ready too. Xiao Jie took out the crooked piece of meat and immediately brought it to Bahara. Your knife skills are too poor. Min Qi just took a look and denied it in his heart. Bahala put it all into his mouth again. It tastes okay. I passed too. Xiaojia shouted happily. Then Kilua and Karapika also served their dishes. Uneven, fat, and thin. There are too many spices. Menki pointed out various problems one by one, but Bahara accepted them all and gave it a delicious evaluation. Seeing this, the other candidates also presented their braised pork dishes. In order to pass the exam as soon as possible, some people opened the pot and put the meat in before the stewing time. In this regard, Bahara accepted all the dishes. Even the dish that Jatala served was so scattered that it could barely be seen as a piece of meat. Bahara also swallowed it with difficulty, his throat rolling. Not bad. In short, it couldn't be said to be unpalatable. Soon, as the aroma of meat in the house gradually faded, Bahara swallowed the last piece of pork into his mouth. I'm full. He burped and patted his round belly. He looked particularly satisfied. Bahala, do you mean that you think every dish of braised pork with pork that you eat is delicious? There are a lot of stews, and even some raw meat there. Min Qi couldn't stand it. You are so picky. What kind of examiner are you? What's wrong with that? Bahara, who had eaten and drunk his fill, leaned lazily there. Anyway, I've already eliminated a lot of people. Besides, this round of testing is not about their cooking skills. You're so easy to talk to. For point 3, she said helplessly, don't forget that you are a food hunter. You should stick to your unique taste. But when she saw that Bahala still looked full and could not eat anything, she could only sigh. I really can't do anything to you. Menki took out his drumstick and hit the gong next to him. 71 people passed the test of cooking the pork belly of the giant nose boar. It was about the same as the original number. After all, in this stage of Bahala, those who could hunt the giant nose boar were basically qualified. When the candidates cheered, Sats on the treetop beside them also nodded. 71 is indeed an excellent number. Although the ferocious pig's forehead is its fatal weakness, it is not difficult to catch it if you master it. But attacking the world's most ferocious wild boar still requires considerable courage and split-second judgment. You must also possess extraordinary talents. He analyzed it again and qualified himself to be a commentator. But now is the real difficulty. In the second half of the test, that girl was a very difficult examiner. Min Qi, who became a food hunter at such a young age, is one of the world's most famous chefs and has won the title of the best gourmet. He has brought his natural artistic taste to the fullest in cooking. Her innate curiosity has made her try all kinds of food in the world. Once she has tasted a food, the taste will be imprinted in her mind forever. Thanks to her contribution to food culture, she was awarded the title of one-star hunter at the young age of 21. However, although she is gifted, her personality is also unpredictable, and the candidates may be caught in a dilemma. Thank you for the 588 points reward from the great master, Shirkudi. Thank you for your support. Post views, 489, start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 105. Nijirai, Sushi no, Maki Sushi. I just made it for myself to fill my stomach. 105 Nijirai Sushi? No, it's Maki Sushi. I just made it for myself to fill my stomach. While Sats was explaining, Menki was swinging the drumstick in his hand and facing the candidates. I am different from Bahala. I am not that easy to talk to. My review will be very strict. In the factory, she walked in front of the candidates, looked at the stove in front of them, and then gave her topic. In the second half of the second round of testing, I will eat sushi. All the candidates once again had black question mark faces. What kind of cuisine is that? This is another dish that I have absolutely no clue about. I have no idea what to do. I don't even know what to cook. Yes, the pork belly dish is meat, But this sushi, what the hell? Why do these examiners like to come up with these completely confusing special dishes? The examinees were all in a headache and were thinking hard. When Min Ki saw this scene, he twitched his eyelids and showed a smile of success. You all look confused, but it's no wonder you don't know because this is the cuisine of a small island country. Then let me give you a hint first. Next to your kitchen utensils, there is a pot of prepared rice, which is the most indispensable thing for making sushi. Menki snapped his fingers again. In addition, there is a biggest tip among all sushi. I only recognize the finished nigiri sushi. Okay, let's get started. When I feel full, the exam is over. Before that, you can make as many sushi as you like. After that, she once again sat back on the sofa with her arms folded across her chest. The group of examinees were left staring at the rice in the wooden barrel, confused. Is it enough to just eat? But there are so many kitchen utensils here, and other ingredients may be needed. The other candidates were looking worried, but in the crowd, a bald guy was laughing secretly, looking determined to win. I will definitely win this round of questions. Ninja Hanzo looked around at the headache-inducing expressions of the people around him and couldn't help but laugh. I am so lucky. I never thought that the traditional food of my hometown would become an exam question. But don't be too proud, lest others see it. He was clearly very proud and couldn't help but say, I can't just publish the recipe of the braised pork dish like I did earlier, or pretending to be ignorant and passing the test as if nothing had happened. This is what a smart person would do. Then he looked at the rice ball in Bakur's hand, and once again, he turned his back and covered his mouth with his hands, laughing. Bakur, that guy seems to know. Nigiri sushi. Do you use the hand to make it? Liurio was also thinking hard. I should be able to imagine the shape of the dish. But the most important ingredient is totally unimaginable. It can't be pork, right? Xiaoji at the side made full use of his good ability to ask questions when he didn't understand. Ask Molek, his cooking skills are so good. He should also know about sushi, right? Then he asked Molek again, do you know what nigiri sushi looks like? When he asked this question, the candidates who were still scratching their heads looked over immediately. Not to mention the smart candidates who had tasted the sweetness in the first half of the test. They were also secretly observing Molek's movements. He should know about such a special dish, right? No way. Even the bald man Hanzo was startled and looked over. Then he saw Molek smiling and pointing in a certain direction. The bald man Hanzo blinked his eyes to make sure that he was right. Then he looked around subconsciously and found that the candidates around him were indeed looking in his direction. What does this mean? The bald man Hanzo suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Then he heard Molek's voice. Nigiri sushi is the mainstream food of a small island country. In addition to this food, that small island country also has a profession. Molek smiled and said, it's called ninja. Ninja. This can almost be described as explicit. The words couldn't be clearer. That is to say, even the other candidates who hadn't reacted yet all looked at the bald ninja Hanzo. In their test this time, there was only one ninja. So, nigiri is a dish from Hanzo's hometown, right? Xiaojia looked at Hanzo innocently and asked. The others had already subconsciously believed what Molek said and had preconceived this fact. And Hanzo didn't know how to make nigiri. Hanzo, seeing that everyone was looking at him, beads of sweat began to appear on Hanzo's shiny forehead. He felt that he was being watched. Whatever he did, the other candidates would follow suit. Especially Bakur, who had just laughed at him, stared at him with wide eyes. It seemed that his idea of passing the test quietly without any incident was completely shattered. Nigiri Sushi Karapika was also thinking. Although I have never seen the real appearance, but the documents I have read seem to have records of it. It should be a dish that mixes vinegar and seasonings into rice balls with fresh fish meat, right? He thought so, and then he saw Molek had walked out first. It seems that Molek should also know how to make this kind of food. Karapika thought about it, and immediately followed. Gon, Killua, and Liurio saw that the most knowledgeable person in the team had left one after another. The three of them also hurriedly followed. There were also some candidates who followed immediately after thinking about it. Since Morak knew that the bald ninja was from that island country, He must know something about sushi, especially in the braised pork belly cooking session just now. He has already demonstrated amazing cooking skills. So if you follow Molek, it should be right. Are they leaving now? Bald Hanzo panicked when he saw Molek and some of the candidates leaving. He thought the same as the other candidates. If Molek knew how to make it and when to find fish, the group of candidates who followed him would definitely imitate him and make sushi together. And the female examiner couldn't eat too much. If she was full before her turn, no. Hanzo also decisively chose to run out immediately. The powerful people went out one after another, and the other candidates saw this. Even the dumbest ones knew to follow them. Soon, there was no candidate left in the entire factory. Minky, you're still talking about me. Aren't you just as bad? Bahala asked, touching his big belly. The nijirai sushi you serve should be made with saltwater fish, right? That's what makes it fun. The novel was taken from the Rala's website. Close where you're reading it and support us on our website for more free novels. Min Ki crosses arms, full of interest. I've long been tired of the usual nijirai sushi. In the forest river outside, many candidates took their forks and grabbed the fish. They all followed the actions of Molek and Hanzo and grabbed their own. There are all kinds of strange fish. After all, this is the world of hunters. All kinds of fish that have been seen and not seen before were brought back to the table in the factory by the candidates. I don't know what unexpected results will come out. I'm looking forward to it. Compared to the other candidates, Min Ki was even more eager to try. Rather than being an examiner, it's better to say that I'm here to appreciate food as a chef. Bahara next to him immediately looked over and whispered, "It's because of my identity as a chef that it's so bad, right?" What did you say? To read the exciting novels, go to Falun Novel Network. No, nothing. It's exciting to see what innovative things they can come up with. Min Ki licked his lips, especially the candidate named Molek. His cooking skills are quite amazing. I wonder what kind of taste of nijirai he will come up with. Whether he makes sushi or not, I want to taste it carefully. Minky was looking forward to it, and the other examiners were waiting. They put all the fish they caught on the table, and then looked at the bald ninja Hanzo and Molek. Hanzo, can't you guys try to do it yourself? Why do you have to wait for me? On the other side, as if they heard Hanzo's voice, some candidates have already started to work. However, they are not developing it on their own. Instead, they saw Molek already started there, and they immediately followed suit. They saw Molek put the rice on the table, and then put the processed fish in it. Then put in the cucumber, a little ham meat from the previous hog, a little vinegar and salt, and then rolled it all together. Is this sushi? The students who were following the process felt that this was the finished product of sushi. Even Leorio, who trusted Morak very much, was full of confidence and prepared to serve the dishes. Even Kurapika nodded frequently. Although I have no idea what nijirai sushi looks like, the examiner gave me a hint that it should be something like a croquette or a hamburger, a dish with a fixed shape. Then I looked at the chopsticks in the examiner's hand. There's also a small dish of soy sauce in front of her, which should be used to dip the sushi before eating it. Its size is exactly the same as the one made by Molek. It's the kind of food that looks like it could be eaten in one bite. After Karapika guessed it, he immediately planned to make it according to the shape made by Morak. However, just when everyone thought that Morak's authentic nijirai sushi was made, after such a long test, it's time to cook something for myself to fill my stomach and reward myself. As he said this, Molek stuffed the small rice balls in front of him into his mouth one by one under the stunned gaze of the group of examinees. The examinees who followed Molek. Leorio prepares to serve his food. Kurapika, who was about to do it, said, "Did you eat it yourself?" Molek, Xiaojia, who was also halfway through, also asked in confusion, "Why, isn't this sushi you made?" This one, Molek put another rice ball into his mouth. "This is the food I made for myself to fill my stomach." Xiaojia, I've been tricked. Killua, who was about to make the finished product, sighed and put down the rice ball in his hand. The smile on Hisoka's face next to him disappeared again, and he quietly cleaned up the things on the chopping board. He and Killua had the same idea, so this isn't sushi, is it? Kurapika couldn't help but ask. According to the results of his reasoning and analysis, it should be fine, right? Morak put the last rice ball into his mouth. Yes, but not entirely correct. What's the meaning? This is not nigiri sushi, but it is a type of sushi. Under the puzzled gazes of the people around him, Molek chuckled and said, "It's called maki sushi." Rolled sushi? A group of people looked at him blankly. In addition to nigiri, there are also rolls 023, right? So that's how it is. Kurapika suddenly realized the specifications are still the same, just the method is different, right? He thought his speculation was completely wrong. It turned out that the method of making it was different, so the name of the sushi was also different. So sushi should be made by wrapping fish with rice, adding soy sauce, salt, and other condiments, and presenting it in a nigiri way, right? Kurapika immediately started to make it. After hearing this, the others also thought it made sense and started to make it. I just knew it. Hanzo, who also started to deal with it, couldn't help but complain in his heart. Besides me, he really knows how to make nigiri sushi, and he even made another type of maki sushi. Hanzo couldn't help but look at Morak again and saw him taking good care of the two legs of the hog. Hanzo, nigiri sushi doesn't require the meat of the big-nosed pig anymore. What is this man doing? Molek, what are you doing again? Shao Jie quickly made the sushi while looking at Molek and asked like a curious baby, "I'm going to make some dompa elbow." Molek drew out the Garuda knife. His hands kept moving, and he replied casually, "Dompa pork elbow. This is another dish I've never heard of." The test for this level was clearly about nigiri sushi, but Molek made some pork elbow. Shao Jie was a little confused about Molek's approach, but he must have his own intentions. Thinking like this, Xiaojin no longer cared about other things and began to concentrate on dealing with the fish and rice balls in front of him. Not only him, but other candidates also did the same. Only Hisoka stared at Molek's seemingly inexplicable behavior, and the corners of his mouth slowly curved up. It seems that the observation and judgment of these candidates this year are quite good. Min Ki, who had seen the whole scene just now, was a little surprised. At the same time, he was also looking forward to what kind of sushi dishes these candidates could come up with. It's the sushi roll made by Morakot. It's a pity that I didn't get to eat it. Min Ki thought with some regret. She had just noticed that Molek's sushi rolling skills were impeccable. Even some master sushi chefs might not be able to match him. It will taste really good. Thinking of this, Menki's regret and anticipation became stronger. She was now eager to taste what the sushi made by Molek tasted like. Oh my god, thank you Ping Pong Kiyu for the 10,000 points reward. 10,000 points right away. Boss, this is a super thigh. A giant. Thank you so much. I can't express it in words. Also, today is Chinese Valentine's Day. I wish you all a happy holiday. I also have to go out and have an appointment, so I can't come back to update until the evening. Please forgive me. Post views. 508. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 106. Candied pork elbow and pork trotter rice. No one passed the test because they don't make sushi. 106 rock sugar pork knuckle and pork feet rice. No one passed the test because they don't make sushi. However, when she looked at Molek again, she found that he was cutting the two thighs of the porcupine. Does nigiri sushi need to use the meat of the hokusai pig or the thigh? She was confused for a moment and even thought that Molek was trying a new way to make sushi. But seeing that he didn't use vinegar rice at all and even put it aside casually, he didn't even want to make sushi. Min Ki reacted immediately. Is it the pork elbow and rock sugar? Instead, Bahala, who was sitting behind him, looked at it for a while and suddenly said, "Candy pork elbow?" Min Ki subconsciously tilted his head back and saw that Bahala's mouth was already drooling. It could also be tiger skin elbow. No, dompa elbow is also possible. Bahala's stomach shrank visibly. So, why did Molek cook the nigiri sushi she specified, but cooked some dompa pork elbow? Moreover, it was a brand new dish that I had never heard of, but Bahala knew about. I was so envious. No, it was so hateful. If he doesn't cook according to the examiner's requirements, I will judge him as unqualified. Unqualified? Menki's face began to become distorted, and he was going crazy. It's finally my turn. Bald-headed Hanzo came up with a plate of food. As the man who knows how to make sushi best besides Molek, he brought the finished product up at the fastest speed. How about this? This is the real sushi. Hanzo lifted the lid, revealing a rectangular dish of red fish meat covered with rice. It is indeed done more like it, suppressing the envy and jealousy in his heart. Min, Ki picked up the chopsticks. I just don't know how it tastes. She picked up the sushi and put it directly into her mouth. After chewing it for 2 times, not tasty at all, Min Ki showed obvious disdain on his face. No, take it back and redo it. What? Hanzo obviously couldn't accept it. Isn't this just a ball of rice kneaded into a rectangular shape? Then put some wasabi on it, and then put sashimi on it, so that people can eat it all in one breath. Who can't make such a simple dish? What's the difference in taste? Hearing Hanzo's arrogant words, Menki's forehead was bulging with veins. So simple. This is the kind of food. What's the difference in taste? She grabbed Hanzo's collar and said, "What kind of nonsense are you talking to me?" Menki's face was extremely horrified. To make good nigiri sushi, even a professional chef would need at least 10 years of practice. Do you understand? She grabbed Hanzo, who was stunned, and moved violently. Layman like you can only imitate the appearance at best. The taste is far from those great chefs, idiot. At this moment, she seemed to want to vent all the resentment and anger for not being able to eat Molek's food. In that case, you shouldn't give such a bad question. Hanzo's momentum was obviously at a disadvantage, but he still insisted, huh? Stirred by these words, Min Ki's face became even more ferocious. Stop talking too much. You're not satisfied, right? If you say anything more, I'll kill you. She pulled Hanzo and spit out saliva, playing a super high output there. I just knew it. Bahala behind him had a headache on his face. Menki's old illness has come back again. Once she gets excited, she will be more picky about the taste of the food. I'm afraid there are only a few chefs in the world who can satisfy Menki. Thinking of this, Bahara subconsciously looked towards Molek. At the same time, a strong smell of meat filled the entire factory. What is this smell? Inspired by Hanzo, the candidates who were making sushi all twitched their noses. Then they all swallowed their saliva. Even Menki, who had taught Hanzo a lesson and made him timid, paused in his movements. Gulu, the fat wrestler Takudo, who was cooking, had an uncontrollable rumbling in his stomach. However, this was just the beginning, as the bigger noises that followed overshadowed him. Gurgle. From Bahara's huge stomach, a thunderous roar of hunger sounded again. Abdomen, I'm hungry again. His eyes were fixed on Molek as he took out the 2 big elbows. Then he poured the special sauce on them. Suddenly, the whole factory seemed to have exploded a spice bomb, and the rich aroma of meat swept everyone's sense of smell. Dump a pork elbow done. After placing the pork elbow on the plate, Molek clapped his hands. Then he looked past the examinees who were looking at him in surprise and looked at Bahala. I made 2 portions of pork elbows, 1 salty and 1 sweet. Which one do you want, Bahala? Is there still a share for me? Bahala obviously didn't expect this. My test session is over. This is not for the purpose of testing, but a celebration of our reunion after a long separation. Molek said with a smile, you have always cooked for me before, and now I finally have a chance to show my skills. When the 2 of them traveled together before, Bahala cooked almost all of his 3 meals for him. He also served as a tour guide and a foil, which helped him a lot. Now that they finally meet again at this test venue, Molek also wants to treat him to a good meal. He deliberately said, "What? Do you think my cooking is not good? Don't you want to eat it?" No way. Whatever faults Menki was picking on, Bahala had forgotten about them at this moment. Now all he could see were the elbows, and only the elbows. Menki, who was venting his anger at the side, why do I feel my anger rising again? Bahala. Menki threw Hanzo, who was about to foam at the mouth, aside and said with gritted teeth, have you forgotten who you are and what you are doing? This is pure mental imbalance. Why can't I eat the food that smells so good and looks so delicious? And you, Bahara, can have someone invite you to taste such delicious food? This is too unfair. I have fulfilled my duty. Bahala did not even turn his head and did not stop. In the first half of the test, I have passed 71 people, and all of them are in compliance. There are no objections. The candidates also agree with this result. So my mission is over. Now it's up to you, Menki. After saying that, He quickly ran in front of Molek, revealing a look of gluttony on his face. "It smells so good, Menki." Her face became even more distorted. "I can only say that jealousy can make people lose their sight. Seriously, being so angry makes me even hungrier now, especially the delicious smell of big meat wafting around." It was almost tickling Menki's heart all the time. "Next challenger, come quickly," she shouted, and a group of people rushed forward in an instant. In each of their hands, they all held a plate of sushi that looked like sashimi, white rice, and some mustard and vinegar. Looking at the food in front of him, Menki suddenly felt that it was a wrong choice to ask such a question, at least in terms of the appetite brought by the color, aroma, and taste of the food. The color and aroma of sushi are definitely not as good as that of the Big Elbow. Even the taste is, how can the taste of sashimi and rice compare to that of meat? Looking at the sushi that was pushed in front of him, Menki suddenly felt that these dishes were not delicious at all. No, the sushi is too tight, the rice becomes too hard, and the taste is not good at all. Menki's requirements and judgments have become extremely harsh now. Hearing this, Valhalla couldn't help but want to turn back and warn Menki that this way of judging was too strict. "Valhalla, do you want to eat pig's trotter rice? I just happen to have a pot of pig's trotters." To read exciting novels, go to Falun Novel Network. The voice of Molek coming from the side was like a whisper from the devil, and it immediately pulled Valhalla's soul over. "I want to eat it. What kind of judgment is strict or not?" That was all Menki's business. Now, of all things, the pig's trotter rice was the most important. As the special aroma of the pig's trotter rice spread, Menki's throat rolled again. The entanglement of eager curiosity and appetite made her even more manic when facing the sushi in front of her. The way the sushi ingredients are cut is totally wrong. You have to cut along the grain, redo it. The shape of the rice ball is too bad. At least it should be formed into a fan or trapezoid shape. This doesn't work either. I need to redo this one too. Absolutely not. Menki rejected the candidates one by one. Shisuo squatted in the corner and watched the whole scene. Then, he looked at Molek, who was feasting with Bahara. "It seems like you knew this would happen." The poker cards in his hand fluttered like butterflies, and he did not continue to cook sushi like the other candidates. After Molek fooled many people, including him, with rolled sushi, Hisoka realized that the second half of the second round of the test might be a little bit different. "I knew the personality of this female examiner early on and made this judgment." For some reason, Hisoka had a feeling that Molek seemed to know in advance that the test question would be about sushi. And he also seemed to know in advance that the test of sushi would be like this. Everything is too calm, or as if it was totally unexpected. If he didn't completely despise the female examiner or the nijirai sushi, then he already knew everything in advance, so he didn't take any measures. There was an intriguing gleam of inquiry in Hisoka's eyes. No matter which situation it was, it seemed very interesting. "Hey." With a heavy stomach, Menki poured himself a cup of hot tea expressionlessly and drank it all in one gulp. "I'm full." She looked at the stunned candidates in front of her and said, What does that mean?" Some candidates suspected that there was something wrong with their ears and asked in disbelief. "Meaning, just as I expected, you all failed." Menki calmly said this cruel fact. "No one passed this test. You can come back next time." However, the candidates did not respond to her with a sad and obedient acceptance. Instead, the atmosphere suddenly became solemn. "What on earth are you doing?" Even Hanzo, who was dragged by Menki by the collar and scolded, looked at him with obvious dissatisfaction. "Are you kidding me?" Wrestler Takudo looked fierce. Who can accept such a result? The three brothers of Amori gathered together, revealing dangerous expressions. Even the other candidates were completely unwilling to accept it, forming a siege. No one left here. But Menki didn't care about that. She took out her phone directly from her bosom and reported the result to the Hunter Test Committee. She is serious. Everyone fails. Seeing Menki reporting there, Liori still didn't quite believe it. Was he eliminated just like that? Isn't this just playing a joke on us? Even Killua put his hands behind his head and said with a slightly unhappy tone, "How could this be the end of the test?" Xiaojia was also not happy with the result. But Menki didn't care. "I said it doesn't matter." Her willful bad habits were unbridled. I am just reporting the results to the committee. Impossible. The results are already out. There will be no re-examination. On the other side, Buhala stuffed his mouth with barbecued pork and muttered to Molek in a low voice. Whenever Menki is picky about food, he will never stop. Menki, who had sharp ears, heard everything and shouted, "Buhala, stop talking nonsense and don't interrupt." Then, he started to scold the phone. "You said it violated the censorship rules? How did it violate them? Didn't we decide from the beginning that I have to think it tastes good to qualify?" Buhala whispered again. "That's just a reminder for the challenger to pay attention to details." "Shut up." Menki took the time to yell at Buhala with his eyes wide open and his teeth pointed. "Anyway, I will never change the result. No one passed the second test." She hung up the phone. Meanwhile, in the Hunter Association headquarters building, President's office, room 1209. Hello? Hello, it seems like the mobile phone was hung up on the other end. Mr. Dumian looked at the phone helplessly. That girl has a very strong personality. At this time, President Netero, who was wearing a training suit, stood on one foot, and on the other foot he was holding a glass of cold drink. If she doesn't have a convincing reason, she won't change her mind. As he said this, he put his mouth to the long straw connected to the cold drink cup on his foot and took a deep sip. But Mr. Dumian Ren walked over in confusion and said, "The reason she gave is too subjective. Not only is the proposal too radical, but it also violates the established plan," he explained responsibly. The original purpose of the test was to test the observation and attention of the candidates through cooking. It's no use saying this now. President Netero drank all the cold drink in the cup in one breath. Don't forget, there are some particularly difficult and tricky characters among the candidates, such as the elusive character of Molek, but this added a lot of instability to the test. Thanks to the reward from Lien Dao and Jiang Shui UFO for another 2,000 points reward. I've reached the top of the list. You are so generous. You are so majestic. Awesome. I wish you and other readers a happy Chinese Valentine's Day. Yeah. Post views. 488. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 107. Conflict. Molek's doubt. You will die. Menki. Buhala's obstruction. 107. Conflict. Molek's doubt. You will die. Menki. Buhala's obstruction. Hoo. There are a lot of stubborn and weird guys among hunters. It is easy for these people to make super choices when they are the examiners and score the troublesome guys. Netero smiled and put his hands into his sleeves. Things have come to this point. I might as well go there in person. Otherwise, if what happened last year happens again, it will be bad. Mr. Dumian bowed quickly and said, "I'm so sorry." "Oh, as the person in charge, of course I have to deal with this kind of thing. After all, this situation cannot happen again and again." Netero turned and walked out of the office, and Mr. Beanface hurriedly followed him. In fact, the committee generally respects the examiner's decision. In the past few sessions, there were even cases where not a single candidate passed. But this year's problem seems to have happened to Menki. It's a bit unfair to the candidates. The two of them walked towards the Hunter Association's dedicated airship. When they passed by the vice president's office, "Have you set off yet?" Before the desk, Pariston showed his signature smile. It seems that the most talented, but also the most peculiar and bad-habited food hunter, Menki, has begun to cause extraordinary trouble for this test. If there is another violent conflict between candidates and examiners like last year, this situation has occurred twice in 2 years. As the president, what should you do? I'm really looking forward to it, President Netero. On Pariston's desk was a list of recommended examiners for this year's Hunter test. Among them, Menki, the examiner for the second round of tests, was the one he recommended. As the vice president, he was very happy to see such a lively scene happen every year within the association. At the same time, in the second round of testing in the factory, I am responsible for the review of this round. Who among you dares to have any opinions? Menki still folded his arms across his chest and faced the candidates in an extremely domineering manner. Are you kidding me? It is totally unreasonable that we cannot pass the Hunter test because of the cooking test. The candidates were filled with righteous indignation. Even Sats, who was watching the excitement outside, jumped down from the tree. Ah, it seems like this is going to never end. He hid at the door of the factory, stroking his nose and beard and thinking. It was not without reason that he liked to stand on trees so much before, and the monkeys imitated him. Wait a minute. While the students who took 620 were still angry, Xiaojia jumped over directly. I must pass the hunter test so that I can have a chance to find my father. That's such a pity. Min Qi said this, but there was no regret in his words. However, the criteria for passing the hunter test is entirely up to the examiner. That is me. Do you understand, little brother? Then, Sister Menki Xiaojia immediately took advantage of the situation and said, just say one word and we'll test it again, right? I said no, it means no. Min Qi didn't buy it. This year's hunter test is over. She stepped on the table in front of her and said viciously, you can go home now. Leave now. Bang! In response to her, the sound of the table being smashed suddenly. I just won't accept it. The purple-clad wrestler Takudo was furious and swept the broken chopping board and stones aside. I can't just say, yes, I obey your command, and then walk away with my nose touched. Min Qi's eyes were also wrong. It turns out that it's not only little brothers who play tricks. What? I've already said it. Try harder next year. Stop playing tricks on me. Takudo clenched his fists and took a step forward. I will not accept this judgment. What I want to be is not a chef or a gourmet food hunter, but a real hunter. And he is a wanted bounty hunter. How can he be judged by a mere gourmet hunter? Hearing this, Min Qi's eyes instantly became completely different from before. Just a gourmet hunter? That's right. Takudo didn't notice and continued to add fuel to the fire. Just because you know how to eat delicious food, you dare to call yourself a hunter? Don't laugh to death. I don't admit that someone like you is worthy of being a hunter. Not to mention the examiner of the hunter test. He also knew how to win over the team. I believe that the other candidates will not just go back like this. Takudo said this, and Menki has not responded yet. Instead, Bahala, who had finished eating poor trotter rice, couldn't stand it anymore. As a fellow gourmet hunter, he would not allow others to say such contemptuous and slanderous words about gourmet hunters. Dong dong. The heavy footsteps stepped on the ground, making a dull sound. When Takudo saw Bahala standing up, he immediately rolled up his sleeves without showing any fear, ready to start wrestling. Wait a minute, Bahala. Min Qi put his hands on the back of the sofa. Please don't interfere in this matter, okay? How can I do that? Bahala scratched his face. If I take action, this guy will at most have his hands and feet broken. But if you, Menki, take action, he will become a dish. Well, I just hate to reason with these outsiders. Seeing Bahala come out, Menki took out the kitchen knife held in both hands behind the sofa. Ingredients, cooking. The candidates who were listening to this were all stunned. Killua put one hand in his pocket and placed the other hand on the table. He was quite interested in this kind of thing. I want to see how people are made into food. It's very simple. Just make human meat buns or human meat barbecued pork. A response to Killua suddenly came from the side. Morak, Karapika, and Leorio looked over at the same time. We are about to be eliminated. What are you still talking about? Leorio said anxiously. It is to chop human meat into meat fillings and make human meat buns and human meat barbecued pork after cooking a whole boar. Molek, who had replenished his energy, also came over. The Big Tree Cross slope was so steep that pedestrians dare not pass. Hannibal called him an expert. There are classic cases of cooking people in both the East and the West. Human flesh? Leorio was stunned. A love gourmet hunter. Even people can be made into dishes. Is this the way he meant it? At that moment, the other candidates looked at Min Qi with a strange look. They all looked at Min Qi with fear and vigilance, as if they were looking at a pervert. Min Qi, who would understand? I was so angry because I couldn't eat delicious food. Then I was looked down upon by others for being a food hunter, a profession I am proud of. Before I could vent my anger, I was regarded as a perverted murderer. No one can stand this. What do you mean? Min Qi looked at Molek with a dangerous look. To read the exciting novels, go to Falun Novel Network. What? You also have other opinions about the food hunters. She was already upset that she couldn't eat Malik's food before, and he entertained Bahala, but turned a blind eye to another examiner like her and didn't come to take her test. All these behaviors have made Menki very disgusted with Malik. At this time, when her anger value was off the charts, Malik stood up to stimulate her again. Immediately, she was in a state of readiness. Don't get me wrong, I have no objection to the gourmet hunter profession. Molek waved his hand casually. If I were to choose, I would choose gourmet hunter as the direction of my professional hunter. After all, he looked at everyone and smiled. Who doesn't like delicious food? Huh. All the other candidates were stunned. You are. The wrestler Takuto looked even more confused. In this world, there are many rare delicacies, but these delicious ingredients are often extremely ferocious monsters when alive, or grow in harsh natural environments, or even in places beyond human cognition. Molek slowly introduced. Therefore, in this world, there are many gourmet hunters who specialize in going deep into the Jedi and risking their lives to capture rare and delicious food. They bring all kinds of delicious food to people around the world, and it is also a very respectable profession. Molek looked at BBC Takuto. Sometimes, the contribution made by the wanted bounty may not even be as good as that of the gourmet hunter. Every time a food hunter discovers a new ingredient, it not only means that there is one more delicacy in the world, but also means that many people can survive by using this delicacy. The city can be used as a signboard to develop the tourism industry, to drive the economy and provide jobs, and individuals can engage in breeding or planting sales business. Compared to the wanted bounty hunter, the gourmet hunter is closer to the public. Takuto opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but due to Molek's strength, he finally closed his mouth in dismay. Do you think so? Even Min Ki's expression eased a lot after hearing what Molek said. The fact that the other party looked at the gourmet hunter in this way actually saved her impression of Molek. Of course, most gourmet hunters are worthy of respect. Molek looked at her again and shook his head. Unfortunately, this does not include you. Huh. Min Kidong, who was about to put the two swords back into the scabbard, paused. What's the meaning? What I mean is, I think you're not qualified to be a gourmet hunter. Molek looked at her directly. Food hunters have an endless pursuit of ingredients and dishes, and they have their own requirements and understanding of taste. However, these food hunters know where to go, what occasions to attend, and what situations to be in to pursue such flavors in a reasonable and legal manner. If it is just for the taste, and you completely disregard everything and do not care about any restrictions, in my opinion, the harm and consequences they bring are just like the criminals pursued by bounty hunters, or even no less than them. Min Ki narrowed his eyes again when he heard this. You said this. A faint aura began to rise from her body. Are you deliberately picking on me? That's right. Molek said frankly and directly. Although you are a gourmet hunter, your main role now is to be an examiner of the hunter test. Using taste, a specialty of food hunters, as a test judge is a dereliction of duty as an examiner. It is not only unfair to the candidates who took the test, but also undermines the impartiality of the hunter test examiners. And it also smears the profession of gourmet hunters. Molek waved his hand and swept around. So many candidates are not convinced by your result, which is enough to explain the problem. Imposing one's own pursuit of food and taste on this test and the candidates is a very unreasonable behavior. If you really like to pursue delicious food and cooking, Molek's words were also very blunt, then you should now go out into the world and chase after those rare ingredients and work hard for them. Instead of being a high-handed examiner in this hunter test venue, facing the candidates who are not good at cooking and using this aspect as a way of judging them to embarrass them, in my opinion, your behavior is not only not what an examiner should do, but also not what a gourmet hunter should do. Good. As soon as Molek said these words, many candidates cheered loudly in their hearts. Although they didn't show it on their faces and didn't say anything, they felt very happy in their hearts. They had long been very unhappy with this female examiner who was a food hunter. She actually judged whether they passed or failed based on the taste of the food. This was simply a joke. If the atmosphere on the scene hadn't gradually become bad, They would have even wanted to applaud right there. What do you mean? Min Ki, who had also heard every word of these words, had already stood up. With two swords in hand and ready to fight, his aura was already rising. Are you saying that I am not worthy of being a gourmet hunter? She stared at Molek and said expressionlessly, as a professional hunter, I still trust the Hunter Association's system and judgment. Molek also crossed his arms and said, but as a candidate who has been eliminated, I am skeptical and unaccepting of the professionalism of your hunter test examiners. Eliminated? You didn't even serve the test dish. You deserve to be eliminated. Min Ki narrowed his eyes, and the previously suppressed anger for not being able to taste the food rose up again. I want to see, if you don't accept it, what will happen? I didn't serve the food because I don't recognize the standard of judging by taste alone. Molek said calmly, if the Hunter Association can't give a reasonable explanation and approach to this situation and the result, then Molek looked at Menki calmly. I can only rely on my own methods to solve the problem. Is it coming again? The old students who were originally waiting for Molek to solve the problem with expectation all changed their expressions. They have not forgotten what Molek did in the final stage last year. And now, Molek has clashed with the examiner again. Is the act of beating the hunter examiner going to happen again this time? I want to see how you plan to solve the problem. Such impoliteness almost made Min Ki laugh. She took a step forward. Then, a huge figure blocked her way. Get out of the way, Buhara. Menki was in high spirits. I told you not to meddle in other people's business. Even if you knew this guy before, you can't get involved in this incident. Otherwise, Min Ki's words were blunt. I don't mind treating you as an enemy in a dish and getting rid of you together. How can that be possible? Buhara stood between the two men, unmoved. This is not a question of knowing each other or not, and I am not here to be a peacemaker to mediate disputes. He turned to face Min Ki and said, I'm just afraid that you'd get killed accidentally, Min Ki. You will die. Post views. 530. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 108. Come on. I don't accept it. Goodbye, Netero. It's so unfair to us. 108 is here. I don't accept it. Goodbye, Netero. It's so unfair to us. You will die, Menki. When Bahala said this, he successfully aroused Menki's anger. What do you mean, Bahara? Menki's two swords instantly entangled with amazing telekinesis. Do you look down on me? Or do you think that as a one-star gourmet hunter, I can't even beat a test taker? Dash. Menki's forehead veins bulged, and he said in a very aggressive tone, I am not that loser from Tohari last year, Dash. Menki naturally knew about the beating of Tokari by Molek last year. However, as a one-star gourmet hunter, she was far superior to Tokari in terms of strength, mind ability, and achievements. She had achieved such success at such a young age, and she was in a proud position in her life. She didn't think she would repeat the same mistake as last year. No, Menki, I know you very well. Bahala shook his head without giving in. It is precisely because I know your strength that I said that you will die. I traveled with Molek for more than half a year. Bahara said solemnly, I have seen Morak in action. Last year, when hunting the Thunder Drill pterosaur, Morak's powerful attack was so powerful that Bahara could not forget it. It was even engraved in his mind and heart, leaving a deep impression. I can say responsibly, Bahala said slowly, if Molek wanted to, he could kill everyone at the scene, including you and me. He has the ability. When these words came out, Min Ki's eyebrows suddenly raised. The candidates at the back also took a step back. For those old students, they had seen Molek's skills last year. At the sports meeting, he embedded the swordsman Agen into the wall, and in the second and third rounds of tests, he drove away other candidates alone. Almost no one dared to confront him head-on. Even when he beat up the examiner later, they didn't feel too surprised. In their opinion, Molek was fully capable of doing such a thing. So after Bahala finished speaking, they didn't think there was any exaggeration at all. After all, Molek had a criminal record. However, not all candidates think that Bahala is right. Have you killed them all? Killua raised his eyebrows and looked at Molek twice. Have this strength. The poker cards in Hisoka's hand were flying up and down, and the whole person was in a state of restlessness. It turns out that Molek is so strong. Xiaojia also looked at Molek beside him with surprise. He knew Molek was very strong, but he didn't expect him to be this strong. Kill all of us present. Liorio's eyes subconsciously glanced at Hisoka. What the male examiner meant was that Molek could kill Hisoka as well. Liorio approached Kurapika and whispered. Who knows, Kurapika was not sure about this. But one thing is certain, this male examiner has experienced Molek's strength up close. And he also understood the strength of the female examiner, so he could make such a decisive judgment. It is even possible that Molek had shown great strength in front of him, leaving him with an indelible impression. Is that so? Liorio was relieved when he heard this. If Molek comes forward to take charge, we may still have some room for maneuver in this test. And taking a step back, Liorio clenches fists. Even if Morak really kills everyone at the scene, we should be able to survive. Kurapika, he suddenly didn't want to talk to Liorio anymore. On the other hand, after Bahala said these words, the aura on the two swords in Menki's hands also weakened. Although she was very angry now, she had not yet lost her mind. Bahala had made it so clear, even though she still felt that Molek's strength was a bit exaggerated. But she knew Bahala and chose to believe him. What's the use of being strong? Menki snorted coldly and sheathed her knife. She would not take action again unless it was absolutely necessary. In short, as the examiner of this round of testing, I will not change my test results. If you plan to solve the problem in your own way, I'm always here to help you. After saying that, Menki took 2 steps back and looked at Molek behind him with full vigilance. I just knew it. In response, Molek just shook his head. It was difficult to change the mind of such a willful and unruly girl under normal circumstances. So Molek took out his cell phone and called in front of many candidates. Beep beep hello. After the call was connected, a hearty laugh came immediately. Hoo hoo ho. Why are you calling me suddenly? Stop pretending, old man. Molek got straight to the point. I don't believe you don't know the situation of the hunter test here. Hunter test? What's going on with the hunter test? Netero on the other end of the phone asked knowingly. Really? Molek nodded. Then it seems that nothing is wrong. Click. He hung up the phone. Xiaojia tilted his head. Who is Molek talking to? Who knows? Maybe it's some big shot from the Hunter Association. Killua put his hands behind his head. Normally, at this time, people would use their connections to get people to come. Before he finished speaking, the phone in Molek's hand rang again. Mr. Molek, Mr. Dumian Rin said apologetically on the phone. The association has already known about the second round of testing, and the president has already started to deal with it. Molek, I thought President Netero had been completely sidelined and became a mascot puppet president. He didn't even tell him about such an important thing that happened in the hunter test. Mr. Molek, you are joking. Mr. Dumian Rin sweated profusely. We have already started to deal with this incident, and we will definitely give all the candidates a satisfactory answer. How are you going to deal with this? We've arrived. Netero's cheerful voice reappeared on the phone. At the same time, the roar of propellers and airships could be heard from the sky outside. What is that? All the examinees ran outside and saw an airship with the Hunter Association's logo on it floating in the sky. That is the Hunter Association's logo. It's the exam committee's ship. Under the gaze of the examinees, a figure slowly walked out of the airship's door. Then it fell straight down from the sky. Or rather, it landed. Boom! The figure landed, stirring up a large cloud of dust, almost forming a small tornado. When everything dispersed, revealing the figure inside, meeting President Menki, who came out, was also surprised to see the person coming. It's really rare. I didn't expect the president to come out in person. Satsu, who was hiding and watching the show, couldn't help but look surprised. It is very rare for the president of the Hunter Association to show up during the hunter test. Liorio was full of curiosity. Who is that old man? Kurapika analyzed rationally. Menki called him the president, so he should be. Xiaojin noticed the stilts under his feet. Jumping from such a high place, it's amazing. Killua nodded and said, yeah, does that old man have spring legs? Even a group of candidates followed suit and guessed he is the chairman of the Hunter Test Review Committee, Netero. and the highest person in charge of the hunter test. Valhalla introduced him. Then, together with Menki, he performed a heart source flow ceremony towards him. Ah, he is the person in charge, but he is actually just a person behind the scenes. Netero, who was wearing a white training suit, stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Only when disputes arise do we need to come out and deal with them. Otherwise, if some candidates are not convinced and act on their own, we will have a headache." As he spoke, he looked at Molek, who was walking out of the crowd. "Hey, long time no see, President." Molek came over and greeted him familiarly. "Yes, you really were there twice in a row." Netero put his hands into his sleeves and said, "Should I say, is it just a coincidence? Or is it that you and the hunter are not compatible in the test? I am an honest and diligent candidate who takes the test," Molek said with a smile. "But every time I always encounter a weird examiner. Last time it was the extreme Shabi's brain that was out of place. This time it was the inexplicable neurosis, huh?" Menki, who was standing next to Bahara, looked up and puffed up her cheeks to say something. But when she saw Satsadu coming out of the jungle, bowing to President Netero and walking to the side, she finally swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue. "So that's it." Netero stroked his beard. "Is this all the Hunter Association's fault? You can ask these candidates and see what they think." Molek shrugged. "I won't comment." Netero would not ask. If it wasn't a problem with their Hunter Association, he wouldn't have come all the way here. "Menki, yes." Hearing his name, Menki immediately stood up straight. It's really rare that even that tigress Menki was so nervous and had to be respectful. This shows that the president is very important. "You also said it. He is the president. And for us examinees, he should be here to deal with this matter, right?" Amid the discussions among the examinees, President Netero continued. "In the second half of the second round of tests, you wanted to see if they had the courage to challenge the unknown, so you passed the cooking test, right?" "Menki, you are right," she hurriedly explained. "My purpose is actually to focus on both internal and external tests. So I originally wanted to debut a very difficult dish to determine the winner." Netero keenly grasped the question. "What did you mean originally?" Menki. She was speechless. "In the end, you concluded that everyone's ability to challenge was flawed?" Netero continued to ask. "So you judged them as unqualified, right?" "No," Menki's tone weakened. "I was very angry because of the examinee's contemptuous attitude towards cooking. Plus, the examinee's attitude towards food hunters was very contemptuous, which made me get angry unconsciously. I was so excited and my stomach was full at that time that Netero came to a conclusion. In other words, you also think that the evaluation result of this level is unfair, right?" "Yes." Menki closed his eyes completely. "I'm sorry. When it comes to cooking, I can't take care of anything else. Whenever it comes to cooking, I tend to lose my composure. I'm not qualified to be an examiner. I'm really sorry." She bowed to President Netero and apologized. "Please declare the test invalid." "Wow, you were really honest, girl." Menki was able to admit her mistakes, which made Netero very happy. "Although there are some problems with your role as an examiner this time, there is no doubt that you could become a gourmet hunter and get the title of 1 star. This time is just to prove your passion for cooking once again. Well then," Netero raised a finger and said, "Let's do another cooking test. I also hope that you can stay in your position and continue to take charge of the overall situation. However, there is one thing. You, as an examiner, must add new questions to the test of the candidates in a demonstration way. What do you think of this proposal?" "I think this method should convince other candidates, right?" he said, waiting for Menki's decision. Right. The other candidates nodded vigorously. They didn't have many demands. They just wanted a test that would make them feel okay. "I thought there was really no hope for us." Even Leorio patted his chest and breathed a sigh of relief. "However, the focus of this level is still on the test, so we still can't take it lightly." Kurapika reminded, "Great, I want to take the exam again." Xiaoji seemed very happy. The other examinees didn't have any opinions. Even the wrestler Takudo bumped his fists. "Of course, no matter what test it is, I will not lose." Seeing that the other candidates were quite convinced by this verdict, Menki thought about it and decided to nod and agree. "But this time, I don't think this method is very good." A calm voice came out. I don't accept it. Who is so ignorant? All the candidates looked over and then turned back. It was that person who spoke, so it's okay. Who wants to make trouble at this juncture? Leorio looked over angrily. We are obviously going to retest. Are you deliberately looking for trouble? Ah, it's Molek. Seeing that it was Molek who stood up, he immediately fell silent. Because of the examiner's misconduct, we as candidates have wasted so much time and energy. I won't just accept a simple retest and get dismissed. And before you, President Netero, came, no matter what we said, the examiner insisted that we were all eliminated. It was only after you came that she realized she was wrong and changed her words. Thanks to 8109 for giving 5,000 points. He gave 5,000 points in one go. Another generous boss. Thanks to Ping Pong Hill Super Boss, who first gave 5,000 points, then gave 2,000 points, and gave us another 7,000 points. He gave 17,000 points in one go. All of his actions were extraordinary. He is indeed a super boss. Thanks. You. Post views. 551. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 109. Purple blind box again. Molek's appeal. 2 conditions. 109. See the purple blind box again. Molek's appeal. 2 conditions. Can I understand that if President Netero was not present, she would still stubbornly stick to her own judgment? Doesn't this mean that we can only swallow our anger and go back in frustration? Molek output steadily. But Menki has realized her mistake. Netero spoke calmly, but was interrupted by Molek. Her so-called misunderstanding was because she started to change her tune after you. The president came and did justice for us. If you didn't come, I think the result would be the same. So, Molek said bluntly, she didn't realize that she was wrong, but she knew that you, the president, were here. So, in conclusion, she would not change her judgment just because of her duties as a hunter examiner. It is only because of your status as the president that I choose to admit my mistakes. If the second half of the second round of the test is still conducted by such an examiner, Molek crossed his arms and said in an unusually straightforward tone, as a candidate, I cannot accept such a result. The other candidates all fell silent. Through Molek's words, they gradually reacted. They all clapped in their hearts. For candidates like them, the Hunter Association is a behemoth. They certainly don't have the confidence to challenge or question it. Not being eliminated and getting the qualification to retest is already a very good outcome. But this does not mean that they will not have resentment for what Min Ki did before. As a small candidate, he has not been eliminated and has regained the qualification to take the test. What else do you want? And it was Molek who was not afraid of the Behemoth Hunter Association and was targeted by the Hunter 077 Association afterwards. He dared to stand up and point out the situation directly. No matter from which aspect, the situation described by Molek is a very favorable argument for them as candidates. So one by one, they were silent, waiting for the next result. You again. The first person who couldn't stand Molek's words was Min Ki. Are you targeting me on purpose? Her eyes were blazing with fire. If it weren't for the fact that President Netero was here, she would have brandished her 2 swords and fought Molek well, even though she knew she was no match for him. I'm just stating everything that happened before. These are the basic facts. Molek glanced at her and said, just because I told the truth, you were so upset. So are you version T0? Lies don't hurt people. The truth is the sharpest knife. He looked at President Netero, who seemed to be lost in thought. I take full responsibility for what I just said. It's all true. Bahala and Sats should know and understand everything that happened just now. Molek finally said in a calm tone, if, based on this situation, the Hunter Association does not respond to my rejection and continues to do its own thing and start a new round of testing. At this point, he suddenly laughed. Then I can only accept it silently for the time being and then deal with the problem in my own way later. What method? Netero seemed to be interested. You will see it later, President Netero. After leaving such a meaningful sentence, Molek said no more. At the same time, he also collected the shining blind box next to Netero. Well, in the plot where Netero is here to preside over the situation. When Netero, the strongest man in the world, meets the male protagonist of the world, such as Xiaojia, for the first time. When Netero makes his first appearance in this official main plot, many factors add up to naturally converge into the most dazzling blind box. The highest level, purple blind box. This is the third purple blind box that Molek has found after the Sky Arena and the Hunter test. After this blind box was born and condensed, he naturally collected it without hesitation. I never like to put things off until later. Netero also looked at Molek and said, "So, candidate, what is your request?" Very simple. There are only two. Under Menki's fiery eyes, Molek raised two fingers like Netero did before. First, I am very worried about the examiner's sense of professional responsibility. If the situation like what happened with the Nijirai sushi before happens again, I can assure you of this. Before Molek could finish, Netero took over and said, "In the next test session, I, the president of the Hunter Association, will be in charge, and this kind of situation will not happen again." If it happens again, Netero laughed twice and said, "Then I can make the decision myself and directly issue Hunter licenses to every candidate present." As soon as he said this, the candidates around him became agitated instantly. "Just issue a Hunter license." Leorio's eyes lit up. "Then I don't mind at all. Let's have the Nijirai sushi again." Xiaojia also nodded his head in agreement. This is quite interesting. Kia's interest was piqued. Even if the next question is a cooking test I know about, I will not reveal any more information about it. Kurapika concluded firmly in his heart. The temptation of the Hunter license was so strong that it directly touched everyone's heartstrings. The other candidates also had the same opinion. Let's move on to other ethnic cuisines. Almost everyone was shouting in their hearts. The weirder, the better. The more demanding, the better. It would be best if we could decide the outcome with taste, to the point where they would issue us Hunter licenses directly. At that moment, including the bald ninja Hanzo and the wrestler Takudo, all looked at Menki with fiery eyes. Menki? Okay, you're all coming for me, right? At this moment, Menki almost bit his teeth to pieces. I will never have this problem again. She could be said to be shouting from the depths of her throat, word by word. Valhalla grinned, while Sats watched this scene quietly. He is indeed the president. He not only motivated the candidates, but also weakened their dissatisfaction with the Menki test. He even made the candidates willing to go through it again. Most importantly, it also stimulated Menki, so that she would be truly rational and objective in the next test, and there would be no more problems. The more Satsu analyzed it in his heart, the more he admired President Netero. He was indeed the strongest man in the world, the top figure among all hunters. I have no objection to this. Molek nodded and retracted one of his fingers. He also saw Netero's intention and approach, but the other party had already given such a guarantee. He couldn't force him too much, and he still had to stop when he saw the good. Then comes the second point. Molek finally made a request. "I need compensation." In other words, all the candidates who were eliminated by the sushi cuisine in the second round of the test need to be compensated. This is what we deserve. We have wasted our energy, mood, anger, and resentment on this. We deserve the mental damage. There is no problem with this. Netero agreed immediately. Afterwards, the Hunter Review Committee will give corresponding financial compensation, priority promotion in the next round, etc., according to the demands of each candidate. Of course, this is limited to candidates who have passed the next test. Netero said with a naughty smile. If he fails in the next test, it means that he does not have the qualifications and ability to pass the second round of tests. This way, Menki's previous judgment on them was not a problem, and they even had an extra chance to retest. Well, this is a good way to replace the concept. He is really an old fox. Molek glanced at him, but didn't bother to argue with him or expose him. Netero had already made enough gestures in these two aspects and made seemingly huge concessions. It was already a good excuse for those who were considering their emotions stabilized, especially Leorio. After hearing that there would be financial compensation after passing, he began to calculate how much money he could get. To read the exciting novels, go to Falun Novel Network. There he fell into a beautiful fantasy. In that case, I have no objection. Molek put down his hand and said no more. Hoo-hoo. Are there any other candidates who have any opinions? Netero stroked his beard and looked around again with a smile. No one spoke, but instead, everyone looked at him with burning expressions. Netero nodded and then turned to Min Ki. So, let's start the second half of the second round of testing. What is the content of the re-examination, examiner? Min Ki answered immediately without thinking. It's boiled eggs. When Molek made the request just now, she had already thought of the topic. It must be a very simple dish. Boiled eggs. After hearing this, the students were a little disappointed. I thought he would make other strange dishes and get a hunter's license directly. Menki, your little thoughts and tricks are all written on your face. Do you really think I will fall twice in the same place? She gritted her teeth in anger, but still took a deep breath. President, could you please take us to that mountain by airship? She pointed to the Toad Tiger Mountain in the distance. Of course you can. Netero smiled and called to the airship in the sky. It's a piece of cake. Toad Tiger Mountain is a mountain that seems to be split in half by a sharp sword. The huge gap in the middle gave birth to a dark cliff valley that was bottomless. When the candidates arrived here on the airship, they felt dizzy from top to bottom. What's this? What the hell is down there? Didn't you say you wanted to make boiled eggs? Where are the eggs? Min Ki ignored all the comments and said, Don't worry. She took off her shoes and explained, There's only a deep river valley below. However, the current is very fast. Once you fall in, you will be washed into the sea dozens of kilometers away. It was unknown whether she would hit a reef or be eaten by a beast in the river. After saying that, she jumped directly down amid the exclamations of the examinees. I'll show you how to do it first. President Netero, standing by with his hands behind his back, also explained to everyone she was going to take the eggs of the grape spider that lived in Toad Tiger Mountain. In order to prevent their eggs from being eaten by wild animals on land, grape spiders use tough silk to hang them in the middle of this canyon. Just take a grape spider egg and bring it back from the cliff. When Netero finished speaking, Min Ki, who was below, had already shown his beautiful skills. He brought the egg from Toad Tiger Mountain up smoothly. This is for making boiled eggs. Netero, who was standing next to him, saw this scene, thought about it, and added at the right time. Only eggs taken from the bottom of the cliff can be used to make boiled eggs. If someone else takes a large number of eggs from the bottom of the canyon and then shares them with those who cannot go down or fail to pick them, they will also be disqualified. In this level, in addition to your own skills and strength, you will also be tested on your courage to jump off the cliff. After Netero finished this patch sentence, he did not forget to look at Molek. He always felt that Molek was particularly fond of causing trouble for him. If he did not make such a request, Molek would definitely take advantage of it again. Molek just smiled back at Netero. Netero's last edition undoubtedly blocked the candidate's retreat. They could only choose to jump off the cliff or give up. The wrestler Takudo was standing on the edge of the cliff. He was afraid of heights and felt a little scared. Who has the courage to jump down the valley and die? That's great. Before he finished speaking, he heard Xiaojit and next to him sighing with relief. I'm waiting for this kind of exam. Liurio stretched his back. Yes, it is much easier to win by physical strength and skill than to cook ethnic food. Karapika nodded. I agree. Although they could not get the Hunter License 1.8 by this method, they knew that this method was very unlikely at the beginning, and they were happy to see such a simple, rough, and direct test method. Immediately, several people jumped off the cliff one after another. Ninja Hanzo, Dongba God, the three brothers of Amori, Hisoka, Illumi, and others followed one after another. Even Morak jumped down the valley with a tiptoe. What about the others? Min Ki looked at the other candidates who were still not moving. Do you want to give up? Seeing everyone's hesitation, Netero also gave some consolation. Sometimes giving up is also a kind of courage. Anyway, the Hunter test is not only held this year. After hearing this, the group of candidates stopped struggling and quietly retreated from the mountain. At this time, Bahara and Sats also made a fire on the spot and set up a big pot. This is a kitchen utensil specially used for boiling eggs. The candidates below also brought up the eggs one after another. Although they were chased and blocked by grape spiders during the period, they only added some troubles in front of the army of candidates. That's all. Hey, Molek, you picked so many. After landing, Xiaojia held an egg in his hand and looked at the bunch in Molek's hand and exclaimed. Others only picked one, but Molek packed a whole bunch and brought it back. The examiner and the president didn't say that you can only bring one egg up. Molai, he flipped his hand and collected all the eggs in the bunch. And this round of testing is not over yet. We still have to make these eggs into boiled eggs. Thanks to Mr. Jiang Ziyufeng for the 2,000 points reward. Reward again. The super giant has rewarded many times. Thank you very much. It is really hard to express the generosity of the boss. I can only thank you. If there is more, there will definitely be. Post views 536. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 110. The ability to save life without dying. Supercell regeneration. The examiners are concerned. 110. The immortal body's ability to save life. Supercell regeneration. The examiners are concerned. If the first egg goes bad by accident, then picking so many eggs means there's a chance to try again, right? Molek said, looking at Netero again. After all, there is no rule that boiled eggs can only be made once. Netero raised his eyelids. I really didn't say that. As expected, this guy found a loophole again. This kind of energy and ability to find trouble by taking advantage of loopholes is a bit like Pariston. Why didn't I think of that? Xiao Jie, who was originally curious about where Molek had stored the grape spider eggs, suddenly came to his senses. He patted his head with some regret. Damn, I didn't think of that either. Liurio, who also brought back only one egg, and the other candidates immediately reacted. Can we still go down to pick them? The picking of ingredients has been completed. Seeing this, Menki hurriedly clapped his hands and patched up the mess. All candidates, you must boil the eggs in your hands now. Dozens of candidates gathered in front of the boiling pot. Let me remind you first that making boiled eggs is not easy. The boiling time is the most important point. The boiling time of grape spider eggs may be different from that of ordinary boiled eggs. You can imagine what it will taste like if it is cooked for too long, right? Of course, if the eggs are not cooked, they will be eliminated. After hearing what Menki said, the candidates all held their scoop nets and waited attentively for the eggs in the big pot to be cooked. Is it almost done? Liurio was a little nervous. No, we should wait a little longer. Karapicus said calmly. I don't even know how long it takes to boil an egg. This is Killua, who has no experience in boiling eggs. Xiaojia looked at Morak and saw that the latter simply pulled Bahala to his side. Bahala, I put 2 eggs in it, one of which is yours. When the egg is cooked, can you help me fish it out? Well, okay. Under Menki's murderous gaze, Bahala still agreed. After hearing this, the other candidates also moved closer to Bahala. Nothing is more accurate than the judgment of 12 food hunters on the food. Soon, the grape spider eggs began to jump in the boiling pot. Swish! Bahala quickly picked up the spider eggs of Molek. Sure enough, it's now. Hurry up and fish it out before it hardens. Hurry up. The other candidates followed suit and fished out their eggs accurately. Bahala, you are doing this again. At this moment, Menki wanted to cook Bahala. However, she had a criminal record, so she suppressed her resentment and took out boiled eggs made from ordinary eggs. This is the normal egg we eat, and this is the egg of the grape spider. Menki held different eggs in both hands. Come, compare them for yourself. The examinees also held 2 eggs in their hands, tasting them one by one. Bahala even took the eggs early and ate them in small bites. Good and delicious. It's so delicious. Ordinary eggs can't compare to its taste. Are these grape spider eggs? They are so delicious. I have never eaten such delicious boiled eggs in my life. Molek also tasted the delicacy from the hunter world and put the egg into his mouth. Suddenly, the rich taste burst on the tip of his tongue. The taste was mellow and melted in his mouth, leaving a strong fragrance on his tongue. It was as if the vitality of the grape spider egg was still in this boiled egg. We have to work hard to collect them, and there's indeed a price to pay. The other candidates also expressed their feelings. Even Takuto, who got nothing, shamelessly asked Xiaojia for half of the delicious. So delicious. After tasting the delicious grape spider eggs, his eyes widened instantly. I didn't expect there is such delicious food in the world. When we food hunters discover delicious dishes that no one has ever eaten, we are as excited as bounty hunters when they catch the most wanted criminal or dig up treasure. Menki put his hands on his hips and immediately showed off his presence. The joy and emotion are beyond words. That's why we, the food hunters, are willing to risk our lives for delicious food. These words were spoken with such force. Then a voice came from the side. Then, for the sake of cooking, they will disregard all facts and eliminate all candidates. Min Ki choked, and her face twitched. She knew who was talking without turning her head. She simply turned her head away and ignored it, as if she didn't hear anything. And that was the end of the second round of tests. 43 candidates passed. At the same time, the evening glow fell and the sun set. On the airship that transported the candidates, the second round of testing was finally completed successfully. Mr. Ren was relieved to see that the emergency was resolved. He was convinced by President Netero, "It's all because you handled it perfectly this time. There is no other way. There are some very difficult thorns among the candidates this year, and we have to be extremely alert to deal with them." Netero also became a little interested. This made him feel like he was in the Hunter Association fighting with Paris. And in my opinion, the quality this year is pretty good, and there should be a few promising newcomers joining us. Mr. Ren echoed. That's still a real expectation. But the testing has just begun. Netero laughed and said, I wonder how many people will be left in the end. I'm looking forward to it, too. Just like that, the airship took the 43 qualified candidates to the next location. To be precise, the number should be 44, because one candidate who did not pass the second round of tests sneaked into the airship. Speaking of which, they had the courage to sneak into the airship in midair, but in the end, they didn't even have the ability to jump off the cliff to pick grape spider eggs. It was a starry night. After a day of hunter tests, marathon running, crossing the Shimmer wetlands, hunting for porcupines, retaking the exam, and jumping off the cliff of Toad Tiger Mountain, even these elite candidates were exhausted. I would like to congratulate all the candidates again. Thank you for your hard work. In the hall where the candidates gathered, Netero introduced again. Let me introduce myself once again to the remaining 43 candidates who have passed the test. I'm the head of the Hunter Test Review Committee this time. Netero, I was supposed to show up at the last round, but I didn't expect to show up under such circumstances. None of the candidates at the scene responded. This indescribable tense atmosphere is great, he stroked his curved beard and said with a smile. Since I'm here, I'll go on the road with everyone. These two words are really cleverly used. Mr. Ren also stepped forward to preside over the subsequent arrangements. We will arrive at our next destination at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Before I contact you to gather, this period is your free time. Okay, everyone can go and rest now. After Mr. Ren finished speaking, the other candidates all breathed a sigh of relief. Some people stretched their bodies, yawned, and dragged their tired bodies to rest. To read the exciting novels, go to Faloo Novel Network. But there were also people who still had plenty of energy and physical strength. Xiaojia, let's go explore the spaceship. The energetic and vigorous Kiji duo immediately cheered and agreed. On the contrary, Liurio and Kurapika put their handbags and briefcases on the wall next to them. They both have really good stamina. Now I just want to have a good sleep. Me too. It's been an exciting and long day. Both of them had tiredness written all over their faces. Kurapika, you want to explore the spaceship too, right? Xiaoji invited him without any tact. I don't know how he knew that the other party wanted to explore. No, I don't want to go anymore, really? What about Liurio? I don't want either. Liurio laughed and said, I don't have the energy to play anymore. You two go ahead. So, Xiaojia thought about it and looked at Molek next to him. Will you come with us, Molek? I visited last year. Don't mind me, said Morak, who was opening a blind box. He hadn't officially opened the purple blind box that appeared after President Netero showed up. After Gon and Killua left, he simply chose to open the box. I got a special blind box Do you want to open it? Successfully opened. Obtained. Supercell regeneration. Source world. Dragon Ball. Majin Buu. Another skill from Dragon Ball? Sure enough, as long as there are plots and scenes involving President Netero, the probability of opening things from the Dragon Ball world is relatively high. And this supercell regeneration, from Majin Buu, supercell regeneration. As long as there is one cell left, it can quickly recover to a complete body. It can only be completely destroyed by a strong attack or worn out to the point where the recovery ability cannot keep up with the damage before it cannot regenerate. In short, Majin Buu's immortal body. It almost has a super strong, infinite regeneration ability. As long as there is one cell left, it can regenerate. The previous one was natural teeth that resurrected others, but this time it was supercell regeneration that was specifically used to save his own life, making him immortal. Molek was in a good mood. It seems that in this dangerous hunter test, 2 life-saving items and skills were revealed. They really took my best interests into consideration. He took out the collector from his waist and shot his arm. Bang! The gunshot startled the other examinees nearby. What's wrong? What's wrong? Even Leorio and Kurapika opened their eyes in shock. Then they saw Molek waved his hand at them and said lightly, "Nothing, I'm just doing an experiment. You guys go to sleep, experiment." Kurapika and Leorio looked at the bullet hole on Molek's arm in silence. This experiment seemed to be fatal. The pain has been reduced a lot, and the recovery speed and regeneration ability have indeed reached an amazing level. Molek looked at his hands, which were not wrapped in any thoughts or energy, and began to repair themselves. Almost instantly, they were restored to a complete arm. This supercell regeneration skill can really be called a life-saving skill. As for whether to give it another try with his heart and brain, Molek is not so inclined to self-harm. Back to the point, awakened by the gunshot just now, Leorio was less sleepy. How many rounds of testing are left? No one seems to have told us. He looked around and found that the people around him had already run away after hearing Molek's gunshot. Even the great god Donba had already left here with his head in his hands, fearing that he would be targeted by Molek again. He even gave up the idea of putting verbal pressure on Leorio and Kurapika to make them nervous and exhausted. Usually there are 5 or 6. Molek put away his gun and replied casually, "Last year, the test was only 5 rounds. It seems that there are still 3 or 4 rounds left, so let's take a break now." The 2 of them covered themselves with the quilt again, while the 723 candidates were resting. Above the airship, in the lounge inside the association. In front of the dining table, Sats, Bahala, and Menki were sitting at table. "Hey, how many people do you think will be left this year?" Menki started the conversation. "Are you asking about the candidates who passed this year?" Bohara asked vaguely while stuffing steak into his mouth. "Yes, although originally all of them were to be eliminated. In the end, so many people passed. I must honestly say that this year's strength is really good." Menki exclaimed, "I think their qualities are very good, and many people should pass the subsequent tests, right?" "That depends on the subsequent tests and what kind of examiners they are." Bahala thought silently. If all the examiners were like Menki, then it is possible that all of them would fail again. "This year, some of the new students are really strong," Sats said, holding a cup of coffee. "They look promising." "Mr. Sats thinks so, too." Menki's face lit up. "I think the bald man number 294 is very promising." She also emphasized, "This is not because his head is particularly bright and eye-catching. It's because he knows the sushi well." Bohara continued silently. "I am sure that number 99 is very outstanding." Sats found the breath of a killer family in the crowd at a glance. His temperament is different from ordinary people, and he is very talented. I believe he must have received some special training. Menki had a different opinion on this. "That little devil. Not only is he willful and arrogant, he must have type B blood. I won't be with someone like him." "Who asked you this?" "Moreover, you are willful and arrogant. Mingming Menki, you are even more like this, right?" Bohala continued to eat with his head down, complaining in his heart. Then he was called, "Where's Bahala?" Menki turned around and looked at him. "Well, I think the newcomers are all okay, but there are some old students who are worth paying attention to, and I am quite concerned about them. If you're talking about the guy you knew before, Min Ki interrupted directly, then you can shut up. She still feels resentful about Molek. Valhalla, 44, I think you should have noticed, Menki, that when number 255 got angry when he stood up, the guy released an astonishing murderous aura. It felt like an irrepressible, murderous aura. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 111, Zoldik's Avenger. Molek's teasing, facing Ilmi. The murderous intent covering the entire place. 111 Zoldik's Avenger. Molek's teasing, facing Ilmi. The murderous intent covering the whole place. Of course I noticed him. Menki was also impressed when he mentioned she saw. The reason why I was so anxious was because of this guy. I felt that he was always looking for an opportunity to provoke me. Well, are you sure you're not trying to blame yourself for the failure of the cooking test due to your own willfulness? Bahara closed his mouth silently again. I feel the same way. Sats was drinking coffee from somewhere. He is a special person, did Mr. Sats have one too? Well, although I don't want to admit it, he is the same type of person as us. Sats nodded. It's just that he likes to hide in the dark more than us. In fact, hunters like us are used to subconsciously seeking equal opponents in order to gain a sense of identity from opponents of equal strength. Among these people, there are heretics from time to time who step on the accelerator when we step on the brakes. In short, it is an outlier among outliers. Bohala and Menki both nodded in agreement with this result. Talking about different things, a figure kept appearing in Menki's mind. At the same time, Sats put down his coffee and looked at Bahara, who was eating silently. Bahara, huh? What's wrong, Mr. Zutz? How did you meet Molek? Me? We. Bahala thought about it and found that there was nothing shameful during the time they knew each other. So he briefly told Sats about it. So that's how it is. You met for food? Sats nodded. I also met Morak by chance, because of a certain relic. He gave me a very different feeling. Bahala nodded in agreement, and then talked to Sats about his feelings. Neither of them cared about her feelings, that is, when the examiners were communicating below. Killua and Gon also circled the entire airship, and in front of the viewing window, the two had a good chat, including but not limited to the fact that Killua came out to participate in the hunter test this time because he stabbed his own mother and brother and ran away. The chat between the two was at a hot stage, and then they were interrupted by a guy who came suddenly. Candidate No. 111, Anida, wants to become a bounty hunter to avenge her most hateful father's murder. And the murderer of her father is what she said, the most notorious person from the Zoldyck family. In the tea restaurant on the airship, Anida, with double ponytails, is accusing everything that happened to her. My father was originally a businessman who did business in Spicy Hill. He formed a fleet to export spice stones from Spicy Hill to all parts of the world for trade. When the business was at its peak, the profits were enough to buy an entire small country. But some people can't stand my father's success. Maybe they are competitors and hired professional killers to kill my father. She stared at Killua, who was sitting there with a calm face. I heard rumors outside that someone from the Zoldyck family will participate in this year's hunter test. She drew her knife and stabbed Killua fiercely. The scene was in chaos. Even Karapika and Leorio, who were already resting, rushed over to dissuade them. And in the corner of this tea restaurant, it seems that you haven't been able to hide the information of the Zoldyck family well enough, and the news leaked out so easily. Molek took a sip of the lava tea in his hand and looked at the guy in front of him with nails stuck in his face. Isn't it said outside that someone wants to spend 100 million gold to get your family photo? If I were a candidate for this hunter test, I would only need to find a chance to take a few more photos of you two brothers, which would be enough to ensure that you would have no worries about food and clothing for the rest of your life. Tot. Jitaraku, also known as Illumi Zoldyck, who was sitting opposite Morak, just kept nodding his head without giving any response. It was a coincidence that Morak was originally planning to come to this tea restaurant to try some good food and drink a cup of lava tea to refresh himself. As a result, he happened to run into Killua and Gon, talking to that Anida, and a brother Khan who was still silently paying attention to his brother a few tables away. Morak, who could watch the fun, of course chose to sit next to Illumi without hesitation. He also kept fanning the flames for him. Your brother came to participate in the hunter test on a whim, so there is no way there would be rumors outside. Then the problem may be with you. Molek put down his teacup and said, "You came here to get a hunter's license in order to complete a certain task, right? Of course, even if you don't say anything, I know it's you, Ilmi. After all, we met at the Sky Arena." He spread his hands and said, "Look, even I know why you came here to take the hunter license exam. That means you haven't done enough confidentiality. Of course, I have full confidence in the business capabilities of the Zoldyck family. So you might as well think about whether there is some problem with your employer. The Zoldyck family hired you to complete a certain job, and this job requires a hunter license. This is just short of telling others that the Zoldyck family is coming to participate in the hunter test. Don't take it lightly. I don't think you care that the secret was leaked to you." Molek pointed to the side and said with a smile, "The one being hunted now is your brother." Click. Jatala nodded bitterly. "It is really wrong that the younger brother is in danger because of the elder brother's mistake at work." Molek continued to say, "Although it is easy for Killua to avoid the attack of this eliminated candidate with his ability, but what about the future? If there is such a mistake in your work again, and people like me, Hisoka, or even enemies of professional hunters come to hunt down Killua, so what are you going to do, Jatala?" Molek stopped talking before he finished. Boom! A strong killing intent instantly burst out from Jatala Ku in front of him. At this moment, the atmosphere in the entire tea restaurant suddenly dropped to freezing point. What happened? Xiao Jie's hair stood on end, and his hedgehog hair seemed to have exploded into a mohawk. What happened? Even Leorio and Kurapika were immediately covered in cold sweat. Anida, who was holding a knife and stabbing Killua, was frozen in place, unable to move at all. In the next room, the poker pyramid that Hisoka had just placed in front of him fell to the ground in an instant. Oh! He raised his head and looked towards the tea restaurant with interest. The examinees who were resting here, especially those who had fallen asleep, suddenly looked ugly. It was as if they were trapped in a nightmare. Such murderous intent. Above the airship, the expressions of Sats, Menki, and others suddenly changed. This was a strong killing intent that made them feel palpitating. Is there anyone like this among this year's candidates? They were all confused and immediately stood up and took action. Is it that Molek? Although she wanted to cook him, under this terrifying, murderous intention, Menki thought of Molek first. It seemed that he was the only candidate in this year who had such ability. Menki still recognized Molek's strength. No, it's not him. Almost at the same time, Bahara and Sats denied it together. This isn't Siso. Several people have felt Hisoka's killing intent. To read the exciting novel, go to Falun Novel Network. This is a brand new killing intent that they have never experienced before. If this killing intent was released from these qualified candidates, it means that the quality of this year's candidates is really very high. Sats and Bahala kept walking and rushed down. But if there's an outsider lurking in with bad intentions, Menki added, then we feel more relieved. In addition to us examiners and candidates, there is also President Netero on this airship. In the tea restaurant, everyone had different reactions to the killing intent released by Illumi. But the strongest reaction was Ilmi. Killua hugged his arms with both hands, his pupils almost blurred into black and white. His whole body was shaking, and a lot of sweat flowed down his forehead. His mouth was trembling as he said the name. No one was more familiar with this murderous intent than him. No one was more impressed and affected by this murderous intent than him. It was a childhood nightmare, a nightmare-like fear. How could Ilmi exist here? He subconsciously looked in the direction where the murderous aura was coming from. Then he saw Morak sitting alone at a table, smiling and waving at him. Was it released by Morak? As a killer, Killua gradually regained his composure. Was it him who released the murderous aura? Why'd he do that? Moreover, it was so similar to Illumi's murderous aura. At this moment, Killua was like a student with 100,000 questions. He was eager to know the answers to all this. However, this farce should also end. The Hunter Association's president, Netero, who looks like a sage, has already arrived at the scene. Although disputes and fights between candidates are not something we examiners should intervene in, but the candidate number 111 was eliminated during the second test. Regardless of the reason, since she has been eliminated, she can no longer stay on this airship. As Netero finished speaking, several association staff members in black suits also came and took Anita down. President, Sats, and others who came hurriedly also greeted Netero. Well, it seems that you all feel it too. Netero nodded to them, and then looked at Molek, who was sitting there watching the show. Can you explain to us what happened just now? He looked at Molek and chuckled. As a bystander, I think you must know what happened just now, right? I saw it all. Molek nodded directly. She believed that he was the murderer of her father, so she wanted to kill him. The words were concise and pointed out the whole thing. We all know this. Netero put his hands into his sleeves and said, "You know what I want to ask?" Molek nodded again. But the questions you want to ask, don't you already have the answers in your mind? Ilmi used his real name when registering. There is no reason for the president not to know. Netero glanced at Kilua, who was already in a bad state. After thinking about it, he decided that it would be better not to cause any more trouble. After all, there were many unreasonable people in the Zoldyck family. Then let's end this matter here. He stroked his beard and made the following judgment. Anita, who failed to take revenge, looked sad. And at the moment when she was about to be taken away, I've heard of Laxianxian. Molek said, the earrings you wear should be the crystals of Laxianxian, or right? Anita, who was walking past Molek, paused and looked at him. The black-clad staff next to him wanted to take her away, but Netero shook his head at them and stood aside. This refined, spicy mountain ore is addictive. Once you taste it, you will basically become addicted and then collapse. There are many people out there who have spent all their fortunes to buy the ore from Laxiang Mountain. Molek said slowly, "You are lying to me." Anita's face turned pale. She couldn't believe that her father, who loved her so much, was doing this kind of thing outside. This is true, Molek continued. I think everyone here has heard about this kind of thing, including examiners such as Satsu, Leorio, and Karapika, and other candidates. All nodded. They had indeed heard about it. Seeing this scene, the last bit of luck and hope in Anita's heart was shattered. Wang Nuheo, my father is a kind and gentle man. Anita closed her eyes in pain. People around him always smile. Molek, so your happiness is built on those unfortunate people, so you have what you have today. But to me, he is still an irreplaceable father. She tightly grasped the earrings made of Laxianxian or crystals left by her father. It was the only relic her father left her. But the funny thing is that your father caused so many people to lose their families. But the reason he was assassinated was not for revenge, but for the huge profits of the spicy mountain Oregon. Molek shook his head. Since you don't have enough power to protect such a wealth, it's only a matter of time before you are targeted by others, and such a result will happen. It's cruel, but in this society ruled by the law of the jungle, it's the truth. Molek, how do you know that Anita's father was assassinated for profit, not revenge? Xiaojia, who had been listening, played the role of a supporting actor. Because I killed the mastermind who hired the assassin from the Zoldyck family to assassinate her father. Molek said lightly. Many people at the scene looked at him. Even Anita looked up and looked at Molek in disbelief. Don't get me wrong, I'm not seeking justice. Molek waved his hand at the crowd. It's just that the mastermind behind the assassination was well aware that he couldn't protect such an industry without sufficient power after the assassination was successful. Then he went to recruit powerful subordinates. Then, during the recruitment process, he happened to run into me, and there was a conflict, and then start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 112. 2 blind boxes. See the abilities of other protagonists again. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba and the third test. 112 2 blind boxes. See the abilities of other protagonists again. Demon Slayer and the third test. Molek paused at this point, and everyone understood what he meant. With Molek's strength, if they really clashed with him, there would definitely be no good ending. That family is called Kimport. You can ask about the family's past and current situation when you return. Molek finally said to Anita, but their family has emptied their family's wealth because they hired the Zoldyck family to assassinate them. Then the person in charge had a conflict with me, so their family basically declined. If you want to seek revenge on them, you may not be able to find many people. After all, they have many enemies. It can be said that this is the most normal decline and destruction among families. Great, this is really great. Anita cried with joy. The real murderer who assassinated her father ended up with his family destroyed. This was enough for Anita to comfort her father's spirit in heaven. When will the cycle of revenge end? Now that the enemy is gone and she knows about the business her father is doing, Anita has let it go. She no longer has the resentment and hatred towards Killua that she had at the beginning. After calming down, she was quietly taken away by the black-clad staff. But before leaving, thank you. She thanked Molek solemnly. Although she knew that Molek killed her enemy for other reasons, he helped her get revenge after all. She still remembered this favor. No need. Molek didn't think there was anything to be thankful for. It was Kinport who was seeking death on Meteor Street, and he just took advantage of the situation. What's more, Anita made such a fuss, which also provided Molek with a blind box on the spot. Since the hunter test began, it was rare to have a blue blind box. Is it because it is an original character of TVB and it doesn't affect the plot much, so it is only blue? Molek didn't mind the low level. No matter how small a mosquito is, it is still meat. Based on the principle of not wasting, he directly collected it. Got a medium blind box. Do you want to open it? Successfully opened. Obtained. Sunblade. Source World. Demon Slayer. Because they all have the intention of revenge, and they all use swords. So they open this Sunblade. Sun blade the weapons in Demon Slayer, and its derivative works will appear in different colors, depending on the user's attributes. This is also the weapon used by the swordsmen of the Demon Slayer Corps. The blade is made of Gorilla Scarlet Iron Sand and Gorilla Scarlet or materials that absorb sunlight. It is the only weapon that can cause damage to demons. It will appear in different colors depending on the user's attributes. There are no ghosts in this world, but there are resentments left by people after they die. Maybe this knife can be used to exorcise them. After making up his mind, Molek took a look at the knife in the storage space and stopped paying too much attention to it. He now has many means of fighting, and he does not need this kind of knife that is specifically used to kill ghosts. In this way, a group of people watched Anita, who had been relieved, leave. This may be the best ending for her. But the murderous aura, just now. Xiao Jie didn't forget the feeling just now. What happened? Do you know President Netero? He looked at Netero and asked, well, I know a thing or two. Netero's eyes gradually began to show interest. Killua also raised his head and looked at Netero. The feeling just now would not fade away so easily. Do you want to know? Netero put his hands behind his back, shook his head, and left with a smile. If you want to know, then come with me and let's play a game together. If you beat me, I'll tell you. How about that? Xiaojia and Killua looked at each other. I better go ask Morak. Xiaojia thought about it and felt that it was not good. It seems that he also knows what happened just now. Killua nodded. He felt the same way. He always felt that this old man Netero was thinking about something bad. When the two were about to go to Morak, if you beat me, I can tell you everything that happened. A light voice came again. I can also decide on the hunter license. I'll give it to you. Hunter license. Killua and Gon both stopped in their tracks when they heard this promise. So casual. The two looked at each other again, and then they all saw the determination in each other's eyes. Although it was casual, they couldn't refuse this temptation. So the two caught up with Netero again and started a classic battle for the ball. At the same time, after tasting the lava tea and watching a play, Molek was also replying to the message on his mobile phone. I didn't tell you this time. You owe me a favor. The phone message quickly replied, I will help you do something that is not forced, except killing people. After releasing his murderous intent, Illumi realized that something was wrong. Then he quickly ran away before everyone could react. Of course, in order to let Morak help cover it up, the main thing is not to let Killua know. In case Killua finds out halfway and runs away, it will be a headache again. For this reason, Illumi is willing to help Morak do something that is not forced, except killing people. Just like in the original version, helping Hisoka cover the evacuation from the Phantom Troop. Well, if it is killing people, they never do business at a loss. After that, there were no other people on this airship. The other candidates were resting, while Xiaojia and Killua were playing a ball-grabbing game with President Netero. Molek even went there specially. As expected, at the scene of the ball grabbing, a new red blind box was formed. Got a high-level blind box. Do you want to open it? Successfully opened. Obtained. Misdirection. Source world. Kuriko's basketball. Another ability of the protagonist is opened. And this time, it is a hot-blooded sports anime. Is it because they're all playing with the ball? Molek watched the excitement of grabbing the ball while checking this new ability. Misdirection is a magic trick that allows the audience's viewpoint to be guided by external objects to successfully create an effect. It is also a trick used by the male protagonist Kuriko Tetsuya in Kuriko's basketball. The ability called misdirection is to deceive the enemy like an illusion, that is, to guide the opponent's consciousness to someone else, deliberately making others not notice themselves. This move, combined with absolute and hidden, as well as the turtle immortal style, as breath hiding, also has a miraculous effect. Looking at the introduction of the ability, Molek quietly combined this skill with his own absolute skills and other techniques. That is, at the moment of completion, Netero, who was teasing Killua and gone on the field, suddenly looked over with a slight He squinted his eyes and found that Molek was still standing at the edge, smiling and waving at him. His presence disappeared instantly, and he could not feel any presence at all. If you did not look carefully, you would not even notice that he was still standing there. Has his ability to hide improved again? He leaned forward slightly and dodged gone from the sky and Killua from below. Netero admired in his heart. No matter what time it is, he is constantly improving. It's really getting more and more scary. Young people nowadays, while sighing, he also forgot to glance at the two little guys in front of him who were not convinced. He also smiled even more happily. The novel was taken from the Rala's website. Close where you're reading it and support us on our website for more free novels. More and more outstanding young people are emerging. For an old man like him as the president, what else can he be more happy to see than this? He was happy, but Xiaoji and Killua were sweating profusely. Can anyone really get the ball out of this old man's hands? He didn't even move his right hand or left foot. Killua wanted to give up, but Gon was stubborn and wanted to try again. Wow, your perseverance is much stronger than that of last year's candidates. Last year? Were there any candidates who fought with the president for the ball last year? I did give the corresponding conditions, but the other party did not accept them and was unwilling to play with me. Is there anyone who is unwilling to accept a hunter's license? Yes. Netero raised his chin and looked back. Xiaoji and Killua turned their heads at the same time. Just in time to see Molek leaving Molek. That's not surprising. Shao Jian nodded in understanding. I always feel that he can do anything. Swish. He turned around instantly and tried to grab the ball from Netero. To read the exciting novels, go to Falu Novel Network. Wow, so naive. It really doesn't work? It really makes us not be careless for a moment. A new round of ball-grabbing battle began again. In this way, time passed slowly. Xiaojia still failed to grab the ball in the end. However, he succeeded in making President Netero use his right hand and left foot. Then he shouted, "I won," with satisfaction and fell asleep on the ground. For this reason, President Netero also specially arranged for the pilot of this airship to drive the ship slower, leave enough rest time for Xiaojia. Even so, they still officially arrived at their destination at 8 o'clock the next morning. That towering tower built in the ancient forest. It is also the destination of their third round of tests, the trap tower. At the same time, inside this trap tower, come on, a man wearing savage clothes and with scars all over his face whispered with hatred. I will let you feel my resentment and pain over the past year. I will report everything I have experienced to you, Molek. The man's face became more and more ferocious as he could not suppress his hatred. His grim voice echoed throughout the dark corridor of the trap tower. When a morning sun shines on the sky above the trap tower, the 43 examinees also walked down from the airship one after another, looking at everything around them. Thank you for your hard work. Mr. Dumian put his hands behind his back and explained the following test rules to everyone. This is the top of the so-called trap tower, and it is also the starting point of the third test. Below is the content of this level. He held out his cute little finger. The rules are simple. As long as you can reach the ground alive, the limit is 72 hours. From now on, it officially begins. After the announcement, Mr. Dumian Rin returned to the airship. Without giving the candidates any time to think about regrets, the entire airship immediately left here. 72 hours. That is 3 days, right? Everyone looked at the tall tower under their feet. It takes 3 days to walk down this tower. It seems there must be a lot of traps inside. It seems that this test will be more difficult than the second round, so we must not take it lightly. The examinees began to think on the top of the tower. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the trap tower, in the monitoring room that had a full view of everything, the examiner for the third round of tests, Ryber, who was wearing sunglasses and had a rooster comb, pressed a few beeps on the control panel. All the examinees' situations appeared on the big screen in front of him with 360 degrees of no blind spots. The test has begun. After adjusting the video, Lieber took out a bag of sunbae from the snack basket next to him. Crack, pour a cup of hot tea, and officially start the comfortable and cozy movie watching mode. On the top of the tower, there are no windows on the 4 sides of the tower, just walls. Leorio and Karapika were looking down. Going down from here would be almost a suicide. At this altitude, if there is any mistake, there is basically no chance of survival. Several people were thinking about the route to go out, and at this time, that's for ordinary people. A candidate wearing a blue vest and sportswear with a number plate of 86 on his chest came over. He crossed his arms and looked confident. However, for first-class rock climbing experts, as long as there are cracks in the walls, it is not difficult to pass this level. After saying this, he really started to practice. He climbed down slowly and steadily along the cracks in the rock walls of the trap tower, just like a gecko climbing a wall. His professional movements and ability showed that he was an absolute expert and master in the rock climbing world. Awesome! Xiaojia and Kilua both leaned over and looked down at the same time, not forgetting to exclaim, "It climbed there in no time." Leorio rubbed the back of his head and said, "My scalp is numb just by looking at it." Suddenly, he heard a cry in the distance and looked up. What is that? In the distance, several black shadows fluttered their wings and flew towards us quickly. It seems that the person who passed the third test the fastest must be me. Rock climbing expert number 86 is very confident, not only in his professionalism, but also in his physical strength. According to his estimation of the height of the tower, he can easily climb down within a few hours. Of course, this is only if there are no accidents. When a dark shadow loomed over his head, the rock climbing expert subconsciously raised his head. Then he looked at the 3 huge birds with human faces next to him with horror. Cry! The 3 strange birds howled, and then waved their sharp claws and flew towards the rock climbing expert. But at this moment, bang, a gunshot rang out, and then a flower of blood instantly shot out on the forehead of the strange bird in the front. Bang! Bang! 2 more gunshots rang out, and the other 2 strange birds also wailed, and their bodies fell to the ground powerlessly. Although I always respect everyone's choice to die, Molek turned the collector around in his hand and then put away. But I hate this kind of beast that takes advantage of people's misfortune and chooses this time to hunt. If these 3 strange birds saw so many candidates on the trap tower and ran up there to hunt, then whoever was captured, Molek would not care. But if they played such a trick like this, then Molek will not be polite. If you still want to climb down like this and be treated as prey by those strange birds again, that's up to you. The strange birds had already turned into 3 corpses that fell to the ground. Thank you for the reward again, Master Ashung. Thank you. Post views. 552. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 113. The red blind box of the Trap Tower. Magic Tower. Boots of Nature. The Road to Majority Rule. 113 red blind box of Trap Tower. Magic Tower. Boots of Nature. The road to majority decision. Molek's casual words from above frightened the rock climbing expert, who was still a little frightened below. He immediately used his hands and feet to quickly climb back up from the outer wall of the trap tower. Thank you, thank you. Candidate No. 86, who had struggled to get up, gasped for air, feeling lucky to have survived the disaster, and was extremely grateful to Molek. The latter waved his hand without paying attention, and then put away a blind box emitting red light that had condensed next to him. While coming to the trap tower of the third round of tests, of course, there are also new blind boxes. Got a high-level blind box. Do you want to open it? Successfully opened. Obtained. Boots of Nature. Source World. Magic Tower. Magic Tower? It just happens to be adapted to the environment of the trap tower. As for Magic Tower, if Molek remembers correctly, it should be from a web game he played before. It is a strategy RPG game with fixed values, which can be found by searching Baidu. The game requires a lot of thinking, and any rash choice may lead to the failure of the game. Although the Magic Tower game is not big, it is beautifully made and has a lot of props. And the difficulty is not low, which is a difficult test for IQ. Although the interface of the Magic Tower is very similar to that of an ordinary dungeon game, it seems that you can pass the level by just fighting and killing. But in fact, playing this game requires a lot of thinking, and any rash choice may lead to the failure of the game, just like the trap tower that the candidates will face next. And this time, the blind box opened the props in Magic Tower. Nature boots can safely pass through various negative terrains. For example, hot magma, cold snow, deep deserts, and other areas. As long as you put on this pair of nature boots, everything will be as smooth as walking on flat ground. Molek looked at the boots in the storage space that looked very good and nodded. You can find a suitable opportunity to change them. On the other side, it seems that it is better to go outside. I think there must be a door leading down here. Seeing that the rock climbing expert almost became food for these strange birds, Leorio and Karapika immediately gave up the idea of going outside. And in their sight, the number of candidates was visibly decreasing. The number of people is decreasing. Several people searched for the path leading down separately and found that more than half of them had found the entrance. I'm afraid they have all left the top of the tower and are heading down. Karapika pondered and said, and it's unlikely that all of them are taking the same route. The only reasonable guess is that there should be several secret doors nearby. But the number of secret doors cannot guarantee enough. Leorio also became anxious. What if it's used up before we find the way down? Leorio, Karapika, there is a secret door here. While the two were analyzing, Xiaojia had already found the secret door. All their movements were also observed by Li Bear at the bottom. Director, it seems there are two more little ghosts. They are lucky. The two generals behind Li Bear pointed out the unusual place. The hunter test is not that easy. Li Bear focused on observing Killua and Gon. It is rare for a child to make it to the third round of the test. Looking back at the hunter tests over the years, it is very rare. And such a guy has a very high chance of passing the hunter achievement test. Of course, there is one person who needs special attention. Lieber bit a piece of sunbae and looked at Morak, who seemed to be checking something in the picture. Last year, he beat up Togari so badly that even the examiner of the hunter test couldn't do anything about it. At this moment, Li Bear seemed to recall Togari's ferocious whispers and requests, and couldn't help but sigh. Why bother Click? The outside world is in turmoil. How can it be as delicious as his rice cracker? It is because he doesn't want to pay attention to so many disputes in the outside world that he is willing to stay in this trap tower and be the director of his prison safely. Click on the top of the tower. When Leorio opened the secret door found by Xiaojia, several iron bars directly locked the door automatically. That means this secret door has been used by other candidates. Leorio's face looked unhappy. Only one candidate can pass through a secret door, right? Once someone uses it, it will be locked. This is also to prevent the situation where one person is in the front and the rest of the group follows behind. Karapika's face became serious, and it's best to be mentally prepared. After going down each secret door, there may be different roads connected. So the question comes back to whether there are enough secret doors. Fortunately, With Xiaojia's sensitivity, in addition to this one that has been used, he found 6 more, and among them, one has been used, so there are exactly 5 secret doors left. No, there should be 4 secret doors left now. Is this the place? Molek easily found many secret doors on the top of the tower. However, in order to get more blind boxes, he still found the 5 secret doors next to each other. The voting path of the minority obeying the majority. Has he been found? In the monitoring room, Li Bear saw this scene and immediately ordered the 2 generals beside him. Hurry up and get the prisoners in their positions. Yes. Hung and Ha immediately got busy. The candidates were rushing down, and the main force blocking them was naturally the prisoners in this trap tower. Li Bear took out another biscuit and said, as long as you can delay the candidates for an hour, you can shorten the sentence by 1 year. This is the great thing they have always dreamed of. Of course, I am grateful, Togari. Thinking of the old friend who had asked him for help, Li Bear paused while biting the biscuit. His appetite had dropped significantly. Since he insisted that the candidate above him choose the majority vote, he should be arranged to go that way as well. I hope you can have a perfect ending, Togari. Although Lieber felt that this possibility was very small here, and here, on the top of the tower, Xiaojia shared the secret door he found with his companions. Strange, there was originally another door here. Was it used by some candidate just now? Xiaojia was a little puzzled. I was thinking there was one for Molek, but he seems to be missing 2. He should have found the secret door first. Liurio touched his chin and looked at the ground in front of him. But in such a small area, there are 5. I always feel a little suspicious. Maybe some of the secret doors here are traps that it really fits the name of this trap tower. But with such an obvious secret door right in front of us, it is impossible to give up. Liurio straightened his clothes and said, it seems at this time it depends on my luck and strength. He put away his skateboard and said, no matter who falls into the trap, no one can complain. Xiaojia also grinned, that's right. Then let's decide the order of each person's secret door. Under Karapika's arrangement, several people quickly chose their own secret doors. Count 1, 2, 3, and everyone jumps down at the same time. Let's part here temporarily. See you on Earth. Then let's go. The 4 people counted down and then jumped up at the same time. Clang. The stone slab turned over. The figure fell, and the secret door was locked. After landing, the 4 people looked at the bright stone wall room and then looked at each other. All of them showed an awkward but happy smile. I didn't expect that the time we were apart was so short. Karapika smiled. If he could go through the adventure with his familiar companions, it would not only make him feel relieved, but also greatly increase his safety and the possibility of passing the adventure. Really, even Liurio breathed a sigh of relief and sat on the ground. But before he could sit still, he heard Xiaojia's cry. Morak? You are here too. Liurio and Kurapika looked up in astonishment. They saw Morak in the corner of the room, taking out a chair from somewhere and sitting there, watching the 4 of them with interest. Are you here too, Molek? To read the exciting novel, go to Falun Novel Network. They were a little surprised to see that it was an acquaintance, but overall, they were relieved. But how many people are allowed to enter this room? What if other people come? Liurio looked around, and then he saw a notice on the wall in front of him. Below the notice, there was a stone platform with 4 watches on it. This is everyone walked over to take a look. The path of majority rule. The 5 of you must follow the majority and pass all the checkpoints from here to the end. Kurapika finished reading the words above, and then set his eyes on the 4 watch guards on the stone platform. This should be the timer and voting machine, right? Kurapika looked at the circle and cross button on it, and the countdown of 71 hours and 20 minutes, and then picked it up. The others also took it one by one and put it on their wrists. So what should we do next? Xiaojia asked Molek next to him while wearing it. Molek, you arrived before us. Do you know any other news? Other news. Molek pointed to the stone platform in front of everyone. There are surveillance devices in there. The examiner of the 3rd round of tests is observing us through various cameras. Then when we meet the requirements, he will give us certain instructions. After Molek finished speaking, that's right, Li Bear's voice rang out from the stone platform. In this trap tower, there are many different paths preset, and each path has different clearance conditions. You guys have been elected on the path of majority rule, which is a very difficult test that requires concerted efforts to pass. Well, I wish you a smooth clearance. In the monitoring room, Lieber said this and then pressed the mute button. The voting path of 5 people, his pair of narrow fox eyes stared at Molek again. Fortunately, they all know each other. Lieber recalled the scene just now when Molek jumped down before the 4 people. The other party walked to the stone platform normally, read the rules, and then put on the meter. He also gave the same instructions, and everything seemed normal, until this man analyzed it unconventionally. If I can't wait for the other 4 people, then I could just put on the other 4 watch guards and move forward, right? The rules do not allow this. This is a 5-person voting route. You must gather 5 people to open the door. Then I can go back to the top of the tower and bring 5 people down. The moment you jump down, the entrance is locked. This is easy. All we have to do is break the locks, right? And it is said to be the 5-person voting path. Molek gently stroked his chin. When the time comes, as long as I defeat the other 5 people and make them obey my orders, won't that be enough? In addition, it takes 5 people to start the journey. So it is normal for these 5 people to die during the adventure. Then if I put away their watch guards, they should be able to be used normally, right? I can't deny the other 4 people just because of the failure of one candidate. It should be okay for me to carry their bodies with me when the time comes, right? When Lieber was asked this by Molek, the macarons in his hand were no longer fragrant. He had never thought that Molek would consider the problem from such a tricky angle. And from the look of him, it seemed that he wanted to make the other 4 people the boss. If that were the case, there would be less fun to watch. Fortunately, they all know each other. Lieber sighed again with relief. In this way, there will be many interesting scenes to watch. He picked up a bag of potato chips and tore it open with a squeak. In the room of the majority decision road, as everyone's watch was put on, the stone door slowly opened. The first iron door that needed to make a choice was revealed. Do you want to continue the test? Select the circle if you want, or the cross if you don't. Of course, I want it. After selecting the 5 circles, the door opened quickly. Easy, easy. Leorio was in a good mood. With the familiarity and understanding between the 5 of us, it would be great if we could make the right judgment together. I'm also worried that if there are unfamiliar people or sinister people who deliberately hinder us and do bad things to us, it will be a headache. That's right, Xiaojin nodded and agreed. The 5 of us can work together and pass the level quickly. Indeed, compared to the confidence of the 2, Molek also seemed very calm. I was thinking, if it were the other 4 guys I didn't know, it might be a little more troublesome. Kilua became interested after hearing this. What kind of trouble do you want to cause? It's very simple. First courtesy and then force. Molek chuckled and said something that made people shudder. First, tell them that this time the choice is entirely up to me. Anyone who has any objection or dissatisfaction will be beaten up. Beat them until they surrender. Karapika and Leorio, fortunately, we know each other. The 2 of them wiped their sweat in unison. And what Molek said also made them think, what if the person who formed a team of 5 with them was not Molek, but Hisoka? Just thinking about it, a chill ran down their bodies. Then they immediately threw the thought out of their minds. Shisuo, who was walking alone in the dark passage, paused. What did I see again? Thanks to Ping Pong Kyu for another 5,000 points reward. If the master didn't help, it would be fine, but when he did, it directly blew me up. Thanks to another supermaster for his support and love. I kneeled down to thank the master here. Boo. Post views. 526. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 114. Choice and decision. If Molek were the examiner, the prisoners would block him. 114. Choice and decision. If Molek were the examiner, the prisoners would block him. Shisuo seemed to feel that someone was talking about him somewhere. Molek and his 5 companions continued to move forward. Soon, the road ahead came to an end. There were only 2 passages with iron fences on the left and right. Again, on the wall in the middle, it was written, if you want to go right, press the circle. If you want to go left, press the cross. Without thinking too much, several people made a decision at the same time. Beep. 3 circles and two crosses appeared on the screen, and the big iron gate on the right slowly rose. Right side. Leorio was stunned. In this case, I should choose the left side, and if I don't choose the left side at a time like this, I will feel uncomfortable all over. Before Leorio could finish his words, he was pushed in by Karapika. Indeed, from the perspective of human behavior, when encountering an obstacle on the road ahead and not knowing which way to go, most people will subconsciously choose the road on the left. Karapika said as he walked forward, and the iron fence behind him closed again after everyone walked in. Killua followed and agreed. I've heard of this theory too. Wait, this result is not right. Leorio thought of 3 circles. Which side did you two press? Right. Killua and Karapika made the same choice. Ordinary people tend to choose the left side, so they have to avoid it and choose the right side. Molek walked behind, because the examiner's thinking is also aware of the left rule, so it is very likely that the questions on the left side will be particularly difficult. That's absolutely right. Karapika and Killua both agreed. Leorio's face suddenly turned awkward. So we're the ones with simple minds, right? Gone. Am I really on the same level as Leorio? He really didn't want to admit this fact. 963, there are actually more possibilities. Molek continued with a smile. For example, while the examiner knows the rule on the left, he may also predict our prediction and increase the difficulty on the right. But it is also possible that he predicted our prediction and chose to add the difficulty to the right. Leorio, what's the use of prediction? My brain seems to be not working properly. But if I were the examiner, Molek said directly, I will make it more difficult for the candidates no matter which path they choose, whether it is the left or the right. Then, at this time, the candidates who chose another path will start to complain that if they had chosen another path, maybe it wouldn't be so difficult. If the examiner takes the opportunity to say something half-heartedly in agreement through the monitoring and microphone, the seeds of division and infighting will be sown at this moment. Reber in the monitoring room. All of them were correct. He had originally thought so and planned to do so. Why did he say originally? Because the current team of 5 people was obviously different from the 5 different candidates he had expected. This method would hardly work for a group that knew and understood each other. So, those prisoners need to come out. Crunch. Liber bit a cookie and switched the screen to the battlefield where the next few people were about to arrive. In addition to these prisoners, there was another person who made him particularly concerned. What is this? When the road on the right came to an end, Leorio and his companions stopped immediately. A huge and wide space appeared in front of them. In the middle was a huge square stone platform standing in the air. 4 torches were placed at the 4 corners of the stone, lighting up the entire space. The orange flame shone here, giving it a feeling of an underground arena. Leorio and his companions were at the entrance of a cliff-like passage. When they were looking at the surrounding environment, suddenly, at the entrance of an almost identical passage on the opposite side, several figures appeared in the shadows. Look, Killua, who had keenly caught the sight, motioned for everyone to look over there. They saw a group of people wearing blue cloaks, walking barefoot on the ground, with chains on their hands and feet. Director Liber, a candidate is coming. The tall cloaked man at the front raised his chained hands toward a monitor. Help me take off the handcuffs. In the monitoring room, Ryber, who was waiting for the show to begin, pressed twice. The handcuffs opened and the iron fell to the ground. The tall, cloaked man grabbed the covering on his body and threw it to the side. Finally, temporarily released. It seems that he is venting his distress and enjoying the breath of freedom. At the same time, he also reveals his true face. A bald man emerged from the crowd. His hair was cleaner than that of the bald ninja Hanzo. He was wearing a dark black short-sleeve shirt, and his upper body was bulging with muscular muscles. He was tall and strong and looked very difficult to mess with. We are the testers specially appointed by the Hunter Test Review Committee. If you want to pass this level this time, you must fight against the 5 of us and win. The tall and strong man yelled, announcing the test rules for this level. That person seems very strong. While he was talking, Xiaojia and others were also looking at him. The competition is one-on-one. Each person can only play once, and the order is decided by each person. Since you guys are using the majority rule, All 5 of you need to win 3 games to pass this level. He explained the rules clearly and logically. Similarly, if you lose 3 games, your hunter test will end here. You will be stuck on this cliff, unable to move forward or backward, and can only wait for time to pass. The rules are very simple and easy to understand. The competition will be a one-on-one duel. The specific method of the duel is uncertain and is decided by the 2 people on the field. There is no tie, only win or lose. As long as one of the parties has admitted defeat, the other party will be considered to have won that round. If you have lost 3 games or do not accept the challenge, then it means that your hunter test journey has come to an end. Now, let's vote on whether to accept this test. If you accept, please press circle. If you don't accept, please press cross. After explaining, the tall man who looked like Dwayne Johnson, Batman, quietly waited for the decision of the 5 people opposite. He didn't dare to say anything more and even didn't dare to make any extra movements. Not only him, but also the other prisoners around him were like this, because behind them, a figure in the corner was filled with resentment and hatred. This figure was different from the others. He was not wearing any handcuffs or anklets, as if he was not a prisoner here. In fact, he was indeed very special. Before they came here, Director Lee Bear told them, just do your normal test to block the candidates on the other side. But if the man in the black suit on the opposite side comes on the field, you don't have to worry about it. Someone will naturally take action for you. Life or death has nothing to do with you. You just need to wait for the final result. Although the vague words were not made clear, Batman could roughly guess what was going on, especially the negative emotions and energy that were about to overflow, which made several people feel cold and lean to the side uncomfortably. Are you here for revenge? This aura, coupled with Director Reber's previous words, made Batman, who has rich experience and analytical ability, instantly give the answer in his heart. Director Reber was able to arrange for us to participate in the hunter test and go to the trap tower to work with us prisoners. Either the candidate in the black suit opposite him had an irreconcilable hatred for him, or Director Reber had a good relationship with him, or both. Batet was silent. The guy who could make Director Reber make such an arrangement must be a very good person. Moreover, the aura he exuded made him feel frightened and his heart palpitated. As a result, such a person still needed to seek revenge, and it seemed that the revenge would never end. He even needed the help of Director Reber, the candidate in the black suit, to read the exciting novels Go to Falun Novel Network. Batu subconsciously looked at the platform at the entrance of the opposite cliff. Then he saw the other party smiled at him with a look in his eyes. Buddha with a joke, Batut immediately retracted his gaze, lowered his head, and looked at the ground without looking any further. This was a fight between the big guys, and as a prisoner, it would be better for him not to get involved too much. Do you want to choose again? Leorio couldn't help but frown after hearing this. Isn't this a waste of our time? In order to pass the test, we have to accept this duel. Everyone has to press the circle. Looking at the time on his wristwatch, which has dropped to 70 hours, he decisively pressed the circle. The others followed suit and pressed the button at the same time. Beep. A screen slowly rose in the center of the square stone platform. 5 choices appeared in the circle position above. All unanimously passed. Very good. Seeing this, Batman raised his head again and said, "Let us choose the candidates to fight first." Batman, who originally wanted to be the first to go out, always felt that it would be better for him to watch the situation from behind when these big guys were fighting. Saija, you go first. Batman took a step back and let a prisoner in a blue cloak come to his side. Are you letting me go so early? Use your deceptive appearance to let the other person feel what is hidden beneath the terrifying. The cloak was thrown away, revealing a thin man. The long bangs on his head covered one eye, and his overall face shape was similar to Sanji. The other side has sent out the first player. Substitution? I thought it would be the uncle who was explaining the game. It doesn't seem that great. Leorio was still analyzing the opponent's manpower, and Xiaojia had already put his backpack on the ground. I'll go. He raised his hand and gestured. Killua looked at him and asked, "Can you do it?" Yeah, Xiaojia nodded. This person doesn't look that scary. Judging people by appearance, he is a prisoner after all. Everyone also saw that the guy wearing anklets and handcuffs was probably a prisoner in this prison. He was specially placed here to stop them and waste their time. Don't worry, that guy is not a fighting type. Xiao Jie stretched his body, then jumped and rushed to the stone platform in front. I believe I will win. He stood opposite to Saizo with full confidence. Killua put his hands in his pockets. This guy is definitely not a muscular man. Rio carefully identified, but he feels weird. The guy coming from the opposite side is short, there is no trace of muscle on his body, and he even looks a little decadent. It's a bit strange. Karapika found something unusual. Logically speaking, this man should also be a serious criminal here. But I can't sense any murderous aura from him. Killua nodded. It's not murderous aura, but there is another dangerous evil aura. It's that kind of cunning, deceptive aura. Molek suddenly spoke from behind him. Karapika, Rio, and Killua turned back at the same time. Deceptive smell? Molek nodded. Well, he is a well-known swindler. Do you know him, Molek? It's okay. I've learned a little bit. Molek looked at the man on the stone platform, who was stroking his hair, which looked like he had used Rejoice. Saija, a serial bomber and arsonist, was sentenced to 149 years in prison. Explosion maniac? Arson. Rio suddenly raised his voice. Doesn't that mean that the other party is very likely to calm down? Rio Karapika interrupted him. He was originally just a prisoner, and his handcuffs and anklets have just been opened. It is impossible for him to have a bomb on him. And even if he was prepared, it couldn't be something that dangerous. Killua also understood. Otherwise, he would probably plan to escape with these prisoners with the bomb. As the examiner of this round of tests, he should not make such an unwise choice. Crack. In the monitoring room, Reber bit a snow cake, listened to Killua's analysis, and nodded. Indeed, for these extremely dangerous prisoners who were serving sentences of more than 100 years, he would certainly not provide any extraordinary help. They were just disposable items to block the candidates. Being able to extend their prison sentences for a few years was already a special favor, and they should be grateful. Want other dangerous items? Dream on. Therefore, Reber only provided Saija with the 4 candles he requested. 2 were not tampered with, and 2 were tampered with of different lengths. The wide arena space, on the stone platform. How are we going to decide the winner? Xiaojia asked, stretching his body. You said at the beginning that the way of duel is free to decide. So, a subtle smile appeared on Saija's face. How about I make a suggestion and let you listen to it? Yes, Xiaojia said. As you can see, I don't really have much confidence in my physical strength. I am not good at fighting with fists or running around violently. Saija simply stated his situation directly. Xiao Jie tilted his head and said, I prefer to use fists because I am not very good at thinking. So it's better to keep it simple. Is that so? Saija's smile deepened. Then I think you will definitely like this game. He turned around and took out 2 candles from behind. Rio and the others, who knew his identity as a bomb maniac, immediately became alert when they saw this. Don't worry, Saija laughed slyly. This is not yellow explosive. It's just an ordinary candle. This is a simple game I thought of for us. We light these 2 candles at the same time. Whoever's candle goes out first loses. What do you think? Xiao Jie gave a thumbs up. Well, it's very simple. It is indeed very easy to understand. Let's use this to decide the winner. I have to go on a business trip tonight, so I may not be back until midnight. I will try my best to update this last chapter today. Please forgive me. Post views. 512 starred opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 115. Molek style of doing things. Recognize your identities. You're just prisoners 115 Molek style of doing things. Recognize your identities. You're just prisoners. Okay. After getting the answer he wanted, the corners of Saija's mouth slowly rose. Then you can choose one of these 2 candles. As he said this, he loosened one of his hands, revealing a half-burnt candle. If you want to choose the longer one, press the circle. If you want to choose the shorter one, press the cross. The majority decision will prevail. As soon as Saija finished explaining the rules, Rio on the opposite side immediately shouted, There must be a trap. In response, Saija just smiled indifferently. Under normal circumstances, everyone would choose a long candle. However, that is only under normal circumstances. Without even thinking, Liurio said, someone must have tampered with that long candle. That's just inference based on normal logic. But the other party also knows this, so they may have made a reverse prediction and tampered with the short one. Karapika analyzed. Just like Molek said, the other party predicted our prediction. Liurio, but if you worry about this and that, then that's right, it will never end. Karapika said in a deep voice, this is a dilemma. When people are forced to choose between two different conditions, they will be particularly wary and unable to make an immediate judgment. Moreover, if the choice is wrong, the psychological impact is more severe than when the choice is wrong between two options. Sure enough, he is a swindler who has been imprisoned for more than 100 years. Karapika and Liurio were unable to make any decision. On the other side, Saija simply sat on the ground. You can take your time to think about it. He continued to stroke his greasy hair. Anyway, we have plenty of time. Although it is a game of majority decision, but you can discuss it here freely first. Saija said to everyone easily. At the cliff, Liori was a little impatient. So, which one should we choose? Long or short? Killua looked at the agitated Liurio, and then suddenly looked at Molek. Can you tell which of the two candles is problematic? Karapika, who originally wanted to let Xiaojia make the decision, also looked over. Molek, who was able to recognize the other party as the arsonist, must have some understanding of these tricks and methods. Those two candles are both faulty. Molek just glanced at them and gave his judgment with a smile. Are there any problems? Liurio was stunned when he heard this. Then what's the point of taking out these two candles of different lengths? It can't be that one burns faster and the other burns slower, right? No, Killua was enlightened. If you take out the candles for Gon to choose from, there are problems. If he uses normal candles, then he basically won't lose. Kurapika's face was full of realization. So no matter which one we choose, we will be hit, right? What do you mean? Liurio understood what he heard. There are problems with these two candles, but he still has a normal candle in his hand, right? In an instant, Liurio's anger soared to the peak. What a bastard. He almost pointed at Saija's nose and cursed. The opponent is a child.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.